Hi guys, the night is quiet. A soft darkness rests over the wide land of Egypt, stretching far beyond what the eye can see. The sky above is deep and still, filled with small, steady stars that seem to watch in silence. The air is cool, carrying a faint touch of the river nearby. Everything feels calm, almost unmoving. In the distance, the Nile lies like a long ribbon of shadow. It flows slowly, as it always has, without hurry. Its waters reflect the faint light of the stars, gently shifting with each quiet movement. Along its banks, the earth is dark and rich. This is the land that gives life. This is where people wake, work, and rest, day after day, year after year. For now, though, the land is asleep. Small homes made of mud bricks stand close together in a village near the river. Their walls hold the warmth of the day that has already passed. Their flat roofs are still, touched only by the light night breeze. Inside, families rest quietly, wrapped in simple cloth, their breathing slow and even. Some sleep on woven mats. Others lie close together, sharing warmth in the cool hours before morning. There is no sound of talking now, no footsteps, no tools striking stone. Only the faint whisper of the wind and the distant, steady flow of water. Time moves gently here. And then, slowly, almost without notice, something begins to change. Far to the east, the darkness softens. It is not sudden. It is not loud. A faint gray light begins to rise along the horizon, like a quiet breath spreading across the sky. The stars fade one by one, as if stepping back to make space for the coming day. The air shifts slightly. There is a feeling, a small but certain sense, that morning is near. Inside one of the homes, a man begins to stir. He does not wake all at once. His eyes remain closed as his body slowly moves from sleep toward waking. His hand shifts against the mat. His breathing changes, becoming a little deeper, a little more aware. This man is a worker. He is not a king, not a priest, not a man of great wealth or power. He is one of many, part of a large and steady world of labor that keeps the land alive. His life is simple, but it is full. Each day follows a rhythm, a pattern shaped by the sun, the river, and the needs of the people around him. He opens his eyes. The room is still dim, lit only by the faint early light entering through a small opening in the wall. The shapes around him are soft and quiet. He does not rush. There is no need to rush. The day will unfold as it always does. He sits up slowly. The woven mat beneath him creaks slightly. Nearby, others are still resting. A child shifts in sleep. A woman breathes softly, not yet awake. The man pauses for a moment, listening to the silence. Then, gently, he stands. The floor beneath his feet is cool. The air carries a faint smell of earth and ash from the cooking fire that burned the night before. He moves quietly, careful not to disturb the others. Outside, the sky continues to brighten. A pale gold now begins to touch the horizon. The shapes of the land become clearer. Palm trees stand tall and still, their leaves barely moving. The river glows softly, reflecting the growing light. Other homes begin to stir as well. A door opens slowly. Another man steps outside, stretching his arms, looking toward the east. Somewhere, a soft voice speaks, low and gentle. The village is waking, not all at once, but in small, quiet moments. This is how the day begins. Not with noise, but with calm. The worker steps outside. He pauses for a moment, feeling the air on his skin. It is still cool, still gentle. He looks toward the Nile, toward the fields beyond. There is work to be done, as there always is, but there is no rush in his movement. He walks a short distance to the river's edge. The ground beneath him is firm, packed by many footsteps over many days. Small plants grow along the path, touched by the moisture of the river. The smell of water is stronger here, fresh and clean. He kneels down. With slow, practiced motion, he cups water in his hands and brings it to his face. The coolness wakes him more fully. He washes quietly, repeating the motion again and again, steady and calm. This simple act is part of his routine. Every day begins this way. Not just for him, but for many others across the land. Workers, farmers, builders, craftsmen, all rising with the light, all beginning their day with the same quiet rhythm. Behind him, the village grows more alive. Soft footsteps move along the paths, low voices speak to one another. A child laughs briefly before being hushed. Smoke begins to rise from a small cooking fire, thin and pale against the morning sky. The sun lifts higher. Its light spreads slowly across the land, warming the earth, touching the tops of the palm trees, then the walls of the homes, and finally the faces of the people below. The worker stands. He takes one last look at the river before turning back toward his home. Inside, the others are waking now. The day is beginning for them as well. A simple meal will come next. Nothing large, nothing rich. Perhaps bread made from ground grain, rough but filling. Perhaps a small amount of dried fish or onions. Food that gives strength, enough to carry the body through the long hours ahead. He enters the home quietly. The room is brighter now. The woman has begun to prepare the morning meal. Her movements are calm and familiar, shaped by many days of doing the same work. A child sits nearby, still half asleep, watching in silence. The worker sits down. He does not speak much. Words are not needed here. The rhythm of the morning is understood. Each person knows what must be done. The bread is shared. He eats slowly, taking small bites, chewing with care. The food is simple, but it is enough. It is always enough. Outside, the sounds of the village continue to grow. More voices, more movement, but still calm. There is no chaos here. Only the steady beginning of another day. Soon, it will be time to leave. There are fields to tend, stones to carry, walls to build. The work depends on the season, on the needs of the land, on the commands given by those in power. But for now, there is still a moment of quiet. The worker finishes his meal. He stands once more, preparing himself for the hours ahead. His body is ready. His mind is steady. This is his life, and he moves within it with quiet understanding. The sun is now above the horizon. Its light fills the village completely. And the day, like many before it, begins to unfold. The morning continues gently. The light grows warmer, spreading across the land with a quiet certainty. Shadows become shorter. The cool air slowly begins to fade, replaced by a soft warmth that settles over everything. The worker steps out once more. This time, he does not pause as long. The stillness of early morning is passing, and the day's rhythm is beginning to take hold. Around him, others are already moving along the narrow paths between homes. Some carry tools. Others walk empty-handed, knowing they will receive what they need at the place of work. A few speak quietly to one another, their voices low, their words simple. No one rushes. There is time, and there is order. The worker joins the path that leads away from the village. It is a familiar path, shaped by countless footsteps over many years. The ground is firm, slightly uneven, with small stones pressed into the earth. On either side, patches of green grow where the river's water reaches the soil. The Nile remains close. Its presence is always felt, even when not seen. It gives life to the fields, to the crops, to the people themselves. Without it, this land would be silent and dry. The worker walks at a steady pace. His body moves with ease, used to the distance, used to the effort. The path stretches ahead, leading toward the fields where the day's labor will take place. The sun climbs higher. Its warmth touches his shoulders, his arms, his face. It is not yet harsh. It is still gentle, still kind. Along the way, more workers join. They come from other small clusters of homes, from other parts of the village and beyond. Together, they form a quiet stream of movement across the land. There is a sense of shared purpose. Each person knows why they are here. Each person understands the work that must be done. The fields begin to appear. Wide stretches of green, broken by narrow lines of water. Crops grow in careful rows, their leaves reaching toward the light. The earth here is darker, richer, shaped by the flooding of the Nile in seasons past. This is where much of life is sustained. This is where the worker will spend his day. He steps into the field. The soil feels different beneath his feet, softer, slightly damp. The smell of growing plants fills the air, mixed with the faint scent of water and earth. Tools are gathered nearby. Simple tools, made of wood and stone, worn by use but still strong. The worker reaches for one, his hand moving with quiet familiarity. There is no need for instruction. He knows what to do. The work begins slowly. Hands move through the crops, adjusting, clearing, tending. The movements are steady, repeated again and again, forming a rhythm that matches the quiet pace of the day. The sun continues to rise. And the land, alive with quiet effort, carries on. The morning settles into a gentle pattern. The sun has risen fully now, though it still holds a softness in its light. It spreads across the fields in a warm, even glow. The air is no longer cool, but it is not yet heavy. It rests lightly on the skin, almost unnoticed. The worker stands among the crops. His hands move slowly, carefully, guided by habit. Each motion is familiar. He does not need to think about it. His body remembers what to do, just as it has remembered every day before. He bends, then straightens. He reaches, then pulls. Small weeds are removed from the soil. Loose earth is pressed gently back into place. The plants are given space to grow, to take in the sunlight, to reach upward without struggle. Around him, others do the same. There is no need for many words. Occasionally, someone speaks, but the voices are quiet, carried softly by the air. Most of the time, there is only the sound of movement, the brushing of leaves, the soft shift of soil, the steady rhythm of work. A bird calls in the distance. Its voice is clear, rising briefly before fading again. Another answers from somewhere near the river. These sounds blend into the morning, becoming part of the calm. The worker pauses for a moment. He straightens his back and looks out across the field. Rows of green stretch far ahead, broken only by narrow paths and lines of water. The surface of the water reflects the sky, shimmering gently in the growing light. He takes a slow breath. The air carries the scent of damp soil and growing plants. It is a quiet, grounding smell, one that stays with him throughout the day. Then, without hurry, he returns to his work. Time moves gently here. It does not rush forward. It does not demand attention. It simply continues, marked by the slow movement of the sun and the steady pace of the hands. The worker shifts his position slightly. He moves a few steps along the row, continuing the same careful motions. Each section of the field requires attention. Each plant must be tended. In another part of the field, a group works together. They lift small containers of water, guiding it into narrow channels that run between the rows. The water flows slowly, soaking into the earth, feeding the roots below. The sound of water moving is soft and steady. It blends with the other quiet sounds, the brushing of cloth, the light tapping of tools, the occasional murmur of voices. The worker glances toward them briefly. Then he returns his focus to the ground before him. The sun climbs higher. Its warmth grows stronger now, settling more firmly on the land. Shadows shorten, drawing closer to the feet of those who stand in the field. Still, the work continues at the same calm pace. There is no sudden change, no sharp shift in movement. Only a steady continuation, as if the land itself is guiding the rhythm. The worker wipes his brow with the back of his hand. A thin line of sweat has begun to form, but it does not trouble him. This is expected. This is part of the day. He adjusts his grip on the tool. The wood is smooth from use, shaped by many hands over many years. It fits comfortably in his palm, as if it belongs there. Nearby, another worker hums softly. The sound is low, almost like a whisper. It carries no clear tune, only a gentle rise and fall. It does not interrupt the quiet. Instead, it adds to it, like a distant echo. The worker listens for a moment. Then he continues. The field stretches on. And the morning slowly moves toward midday. The light begins to change. It grows brighter, stronger, more direct. The gentle warmth of early morning deepens into a steady heat that settles across the land. The air feels heavier now, resting more firmly on the skin. The worker notices it, but he does not stop. His movements remain the same, slow, careful, steady. He bends and straightens, reaches and pulls, continuing the quiet rhythm that has carried him through the morning. The sun stands higher in the sky. Its light falls directly onto the fields, leaving little shade. The green of the crops appears brighter, almost glowing under the strength of the day. A faint breeze passes through. It moves the leaves gently, creating a soft, rustling sound. For a moment, the air feels lighter. Then the breeze fades, and the stillness returns. The worker pauses again. This time, he takes a longer breath. He looks toward the edge of the field, where a small area of shade rests beneath a few trees. The shade is thin, but it offers a place to rest, even if only for a short while. Others have begun to move in that direction. Not all at once. Not in a rush. One by one, in small, quiet decisions, they begin to step away from the rows of crops. The worker follows. His steps are slow but certain. The ground beneath him is warm now, holding the heat of the sun. Each step presses lightly into the soil, leaving faint marks that will soon fade. He reaches the shade. It feels different here. The light is softer, filtered through the leaves above. The air is still warm, but it no longer presses down as strongly. It allows the body to rest, even if only a little. He sits. The ground is firm beneath him. He places his tool beside him, within reach but no longer in use. Around him, others do the same. There is a shared quiet. Some drink water from small containers, lifting them slowly, taking careful sips. Others close their eyes for a moment, letting the stillness settle over them. The worker takes his own drink. The water is cool, or at least cooler than the air. It moves slowly down his throat, bringing a brief sense of relief. He does not drink too quickly. He knows to take his time. Nearby, two workers speak in low voices. Their words are simple, carried softly so as not to disturb the calm. The conversation does not last long. It fades naturally, like the breeze that passed through the field earlier. The worker leans back slightly. He rests his hands on the ground, feeling the texture of the soil beneath his fingers. Small grains shift under his touch, dry at the surface but still holding moisture below. Above him, the leaves move again. A faint sound, like a whisper. The sun continues its slow path. Even as they rest, time does not pause. It moves forward quietly, guiding the day toward its next moment. After a while, the worker opens his eyes fully. The rest has been enough. Not long, not deep, but enough to continue. He sits up straight. Around him, others begin to do the same. One by one, they rise, reaching for their tools, preparing to return to the field. There is no signal. No command. Only a shared understanding. The worker stands. He takes one last look at the shade, then turns back toward the rows of crops. The sun is still strong. The work is not yet finished. And so, with the same quiet determination, he steps forward once more. The field welcomes them back without change. The rows remain as they were, stretching outward in calm, ordered lines. The soil waits quietly, undisturbed except for the marks left by earlier work. The worker steps into his place again. He bends slightly, reaching toward the ground. His hands find their rhythm almost immediately, as if they had never stopped. The work continues. The sun presses down steadily, but the body adjusts. The heat becomes part of the moment, something to move within rather than resist. Sweat forms and fades. Breath deepens and steadies. Time moves on. The worker shifts from one section to another, slowly making progress. Each small movement adds to the whole. Each careful action supports the growth of the crops. Around him, the same quiet effort continues. No one hurries. No one lingers. Everything moves at a pace that feels natural, guided by the day itself. A cloud passes overhead. For a brief moment, the light softens. The field cools slightly, and the shadows return, faint but noticeable. The worker glances upward. Then, just as gently, the cloud moves on. The sun returns in full. The rhythm remains unbroken. Hours pass in this way. Not marked by clocks or numbers, but by the slow movement of the sun across the sky, by the shifting light, by the steady feeling of the body at work. The worker continues. His hands move, his feet shift, his breath flows in and out with quiet consistency. There is a kind of peace in this. Not a loud or sudden peace, but a deep, steady one. A feeling that comes from repetition, from understanding, from being part of something that does not change quickly. The land holds this feeling. The river carries it. And the worker, like many before him, moves gently within it. The day moves forward without any sudden change. The sun, high above, begins its quiet journey toward the west. It is still strong, still steady, but something in its light softens just a little. The brightness remains, yet the feeling begins to shift, almost too gently to notice at first. The worker continues in the field. His movements are slower now, not from hesitation, but from the natural weight of the hours that have passed. His arms rise and fall with the same familiar rhythm. His hands still guide the soil, still tend to the plants with quiet care. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. The land does not ask for speed. It asks only for patience. A faint breeze returns. It moves across the surface of the field, brushing against the leaves, passing over the workers like a soft hand. The air carries a light scent of water from the Nile, mixed with the warmth of the earth. The worker pauses for just a moment. Not fully stopping, but allowing his body to rest between movements. He shifts his weight slightly from one foot to the other. His back straightens, then bends again as he returns to the task. Around him, the same pattern continues. Each worker exists within their own quiet space, yet all are connected by the shared rhythm of the day. The sound of effort is soft small movements, quiet breaths, the gentle touch of tools against soil. There is no urgency. Only continuation. The shadows begin to stretch. They are still short, but no longer directly beneath the feet. They lean slightly, pointing toward the east, growing longer with each passing moment. The worker notices this without thinking. It is not something he measures with numbers. It is something he feels, something he has always known. The afternoon is beginning. A bird glides low over the field. Its wings move slowly, barely disturbing the air. It lands near the edge of the crops, standing still for a moment before stepping lightly through the grass. The worker glances toward it briefly. Then, as always, he returns to his work. His hands press into the soil again. The texture is warm now, softer in some places where water has reached, firmer in others where the sun has dried the surface. Each part of the field has its own feel, its own quiet character. He adjusts as needed. This is not thought. This is memory in motion. Far off, near the river, the sound of water continues. It is constant, unchanged by the passing hours. It flows as it did in the early morning, as it will in the evening, as it always has. The Nile does not hurry. And neither do the people who depend on it. The worker moves to the next row. His steps are measured, steady. The ground beneath him holds the marks of many others who have walked the same path. These marks are not permanent. They will fade, softened by time and wind, replaced by new ones. This, too, is part of the rhythm. Nothing remains exactly as it was. But everything continues. The heat of the day settles deeper into the body. It is no longer sharp or sudden. It becomes something quieter, something steady, like a constant presence that does not leave. The worker breathes slowly. In and out. In and out. Each breath carries the warmth of the air, the scent of the land, the stillness of the moment. He wipes his hands lightly against his garment. The fabric is simple, worn, shaped by use. It moves easily with his body, allowing him to work without restriction. A distant voice calls out. It is not loud. It does not break the calm. It simply reaches across the field, a brief signal between workers. Perhaps a reminder, perhaps a quiet acknowledgement. The words themselves are not important. The sound fades quickly. The worker continues. The sun lowers, slowly, almost unnoticeably. The light begins to change again. It softens at the edges, becoming warmer in tone. The bright white of midday shifts toward a gentle gold. The field takes on a slightly different color, as if wrapped in a thin layer of light. The worker notices this too. Not with surprise, but with quiet recognition. The day is moving toward its end. But there is still time. Still work. Still the steady rhythm that carries everything forward. He bends once more. His hands move through the soil, through the plants, through the quiet space of the afternoon. Nothing interrupts. Nothing demands. The world, in this moment, is simple. The land. The light. The movement of the body. And the slow, unbroken passing of time. The sun continues its quiet descent. It no longer stands directly above. It leans toward the west, lowering itself with a calm and steady grace. The light becomes softer, deeper, carrying a golden tone that spreads across the land. The heat begins to ease. Not all at once, but gradually. The air loosens its hold. The weight of the day begins to lift, replaced by a gentle warmth that feels easier to carry. The worker feels this change. His movements remain steady, but there is a quiet shift in his body. The effort of the day is still there, resting in his arms, his back, his legs. Yet the easing of the air brings a small sense of relief. He continues working. There is no sudden stop. No sharp ending. Only a slow movement toward completion. The shadows grow longer now. They stretch across the rows of crops, reaching further with each passing moment. The lines of the field become more defined, shaped by the angle of the light. The worker steps carefully between them. His feet follow the familiar paths, avoiding the plants, respecting the order of the field. Each step is placed with quiet awareness. Nearby, a few workers begin to gather their tools. Not many. Just a few, here and there. The work is nearing its natural pause. The worker notices, but he does not stop yet. He finishes the small section before him. His hands move with the same care as before, ensuring that nothing is left undone. Even as the day fades, the work remains important. The land must be tended fully. Only then can it rest. A soft wind moves again across the field. This time, it lingers a little longer. It carries a cooler touch, a hint of the evening to come. The leaves respond with a gentle rustling, a quiet sound that spreads across the crops like a whisper. The worker lifts his head slightly. He feels the wind against his face. For a moment, he remains still. Then, slowly, he completes his task. He straightens his back. His body feels the full weight of the day now. Not heavy in a troubling way, but present, real, earned through hours of steady effort. He reaches for his tool. He holds it for a moment, then lowers it to his side. Around him, others are doing the same. The field begins to shift. The constant motion of work fades into a softer movement, workers stepping away from the rows, turning toward the paths that lead back to their homes. The worker takes one last look at the field. The crops stand quietly, touched by the golden light. The soil rests, shaped by the work of the day. Everything feels complete, for now. He turns. His steps are slow, but not tired. They are steady, guided by habit. The path back is the same as before, yet it feels different in the evening light. The sun lowers further. The sky begins to change. Hints of orange and soft red appear near the horizon, blending gently with the fading blue above. The world takes on a calmer tone, as if preparing for rest. The worker walks with the others. There is a quiet closeness among them. Not through words, but through shared experience. They have moved through the same day. They have followed the same rhythm. And now, they return together. The Nile comes into view again. Its surface reflects the colors of the sky, shifting gently as the water flows. The light dances across it in soft patterns, never still, never hurried. The worker glances toward it, then continues on. The village is not far now. Small shapes appear in the distance: homes, trees, the quiet outline of a place that holds rest and familiarity. The air continues to cool. The sounds of the field fade behind them. New sounds begin to rise ahead: soft voices, the faint crackle of fires being prepared, the gentle movement of life returning inward. The worker walks on. The day, long and steady, begins to close. And the evening, calm and quiet, slowly opens in its place. The path back to the village feels softer in the evening light. The worker walks at an unhurried pace, his steps steady and even. The ground beneath his feet is still warm from the sun, but the air above has begun to cool. It moves gently across his skin, carrying with it the calm that follows a long day of work. Around him, others walk in the same direction. No one rushes ahead. No one lingers too far behind. There is a quiet togetherness in the movement, as if the path itself is guiding them home. The sun lowers further. It nears the horizon now, becoming a deeper shade of gold. The light stretches across the land, touching everything with a soft glow. The fields behind them seem to rest, their work complete for the day. The worker does not look back for long. Only a brief glance, a quiet acknowledgement of what has been done. Then he continues forward. The village grows clearer with each step. Mud brick homes stand close together, their shapes simple and familiar. The walls, touched by the evening light, appear warmer in color, almost glowing in the soft gold of the setting sun. Thin lines of smoke rise into the air. Cooking fires have begun to burn again. The scent of food drifts gently through the village, carried on the cooling breeze. It is a simple scent, but it is welcoming. The worker feels it before he fully reaches home. A sense of arrival. He steps onto the narrow paths between the homes. The ground here is well worn, shaped by many feet over many days. Children move along the paths, their voices soft but lively. Some pause to watch the returning workers. Others continue their quiet play, not straying far. A woman stands near a doorway. She looks toward the path, waiting. When she sees the worker, her posture softens slightly. There is no rush, no sudden movement, just a quiet recognition. He reaches his home. The entrance is simple, shaded from the last light of the sun. Inside, the air is cooler, carrying the faint smell of earth and ash from earlier in the day. He steps in. For a moment, he pauses. The space feels calm, enclosed, safe from the wide openness of the fields. The sounds of the village are softer here, filtered through the thick walls. He sets down his tool. It rests against the wall, ready for the next day. There is no need to think about it now. Nearby, water has been prepared. He kneels once more, just as he did in the early morning. His hands move slowly, lifting the water, letting it flow over his skin. The coolness washes away the dust of the field, the warmth of the day. He takes his time. There is no need to hurry this moment. Outside, the light continues to fade. The sky shifts from gold to a softer shade of orange, then slowly toward a quiet blue. The first faint stars begin to appear again, just as they did the night before. Inside the home, the evening meal is ready. It is simple, as always. Bread, perhaps a small portion of vegetables, maybe lentils or fish. Nothing large, nothing heavy. Just enough to bring comfort and restore strength. The worker sits. The others gather near. There is a quiet closeness here, shaped by shared space, shared time. Words are few, but they are not needed. The presence of one another is enough. He takes a piece of bread. He eats slowly. Each bite is steady, unhurried. The food is plain, but it carries a quiet satisfaction. It is the end of effort, the beginning of rest. A small lamp is lit. Its flame is soft, casting a gentle glow across the room. Shadows move slowly along the walls, shifting with the flicker of the light. The worker's body begins to relax. The weight of the day settles into a calm stillness. His movements grow smaller, quieter. His breathing deepens. Outside, the village softens. Voices lower. Footsteps fade. The energy of the day slowly gives way to the quiet of night. The worker finishes his meal. He sets his hands in his lap for a moment, simply sitting, simply being. Nothing is required now. Nothing is expected. The day has come to its natural end. He lies down on the woven mat. The surface feels familiar beneath him. His body settles into it with ease, finding rest without effort. The lamp continues to glow softly. Then, after a while, it is dimmed. The room darkens. The sounds of the night return: the distant flow of the Nile, the faint whisper of the wind, the quiet breathing of those nearby. The worker closes his eyes. The rhythm of the day fades gently into stillness. And sleep, calm and steady, slowly takes its place. The village rests once more. Darkness settles fully over the land, deep and quiet. The sky above is clear, filled with small, steady stars that shine without movement. They seem distant, yet constant, watching over the earth below. The Nile continues to flow. Its presence is soft but unbroken, a quiet line of movement through the stillness. The water reflects the faint light of the stars, shifting gently with each slow current. Inside the homes, the people sleep. The worker lies still on his mat. His breathing is slow, even, steady. The effort of the day has left his body, replaced by a calm heaviness that holds him in rest. Around him, others sleep as well. A child shifts slightly, then becomes still again. A faint breath rises and falls nearby. The space is quiet, filled only with the soft sounds of rest. The air is cooler now. It moves gently through small openings in the walls, carrying with it the scent of night-dry earth, distant water, and the faint trace of the fires that have now faded. Nothing stirs with urgency. There are no sudden sounds, no sharp movements. Only stillness. Time continues, but it feels slower here. Without the sun, without the work of the day, The hours stretch quietly, marked only by the steady turning of the sky. The stars drift slowly across the darkness. The worker does not see them. He rests deeply, his body recovering, his mind quiet. This rest is part of the rhythm. Just as the day requires movement, the night requires stillness. Both are needed. Both are known. Outside, a soft wind passes through the village. It touches the walls of the homes, the leaves of the trees, the surface of the river. It carries no message, no urgency. It simply moves, then fades. The night continues. Unbroken. Calm. At times, a distant sound may rise, a small animal moving through the dark, the faint call of a bird, the quiet shift of water against the shore. Each sound appears, then disappears. Nothing remains. The worker sleeps through it all. His body is still. His breath is slow. The rhythm of his life, so steady during the day, now rests in silence. The hours pass gently. The sky begins, very slowly, to change once more. Far to the east, a faint light begins to form. It is almost too soft to notice. But it is there. Morning will come again. The cycle will continue. The worker will wake. The river will flow. The fields will call for steady hands once more. But for now, the night remains. Deep. Quiet. Endless in its calm. The night lingers a little longer. It does not hurry toward morning. It rests, wide and open, holding the land in a quiet stillness that feels almost endless. The sky above remains deep and dark, scattered with soft points of light that drift slowly, almost without movement. The village remains asleep. The homes, made of earth and shaped by careful hands, hold the coolness of the night inside their walls. The warmth of the day has faded completely now, leaving behind a gentle calm that settles into every corner. The worker lies still. His body has softened into rest, no longer carrying the effort of the field. His arms are loose at his sides. His breath rises and falls in a slow, even rhythm, steady and unbroken. There is no tension here. No urgency. Only rest. Outside, the Nile continues its quiet journey. It does not sleep. It does not pause. Its waters move steadily through the darkness, brushing softly against the edges of the land. The sound is faint, but constant, a low, gentle presence that fills the silence without disturbing it. Along the riverbank, the air feels slightly cooler. Moisture lingers there, carried upward from the water. It drips lightly across the land, touching the fields, the paths, the walls of the homes. The fields themselves are still. Where there was movement before, hands working, tools shifting, voices murmuring, there is now only quiet. The crops stand untouched, their leaves resting after the long day under the sun. A faint breeze passes. It moves slowly, carefully, as if not to disturb the peace. It brushes through the plants, creating a soft whisper that rises briefly, then fades again into silence. The night deepens. Time moves, but it is not felt. There are no markers here, no clear moments that separate one hour from the next. Everything flows together, smooth and continuous, like the water of the Nile itself. Inside the home, the worker shifts slightly. Not enough to wake, not enough to break the calm. Just a small movement, guided by the body's natural rhythm. His breathing remains steady. Nearby, another sleeper turns gently. The woven mat makes the faintest sound, barely noticeable. Then stillness returns. The air inside the room is quiet and close. It carries the faint scent of the day that has passed, the earth, the dust, the ash from the fire. These smells are soft now, settled into the space, no longer sharp or strong. They are part of the home. Part of the life lived within it. Outside, the sky begins, very slowly, to change. It is not yet morning. But something shifts. The darkness loses a small part of its depth, becoming just slightly lighter near the edge of the horizon. It is a change so gentle that it could be missed, unfolding over long moments without drawing attention. The stars remain, but their brightness softens. One by one, they seem to step back, not disappearing all at once, but fading quietly into the growing light. The land remains still. No one has risen yet. No doors have opened. No footsteps mark the paths. This is the final quiet before the beginning. The worker continues to rest. His body gathers strength again, slowly, naturally. The effort of the previous day settles into something calm, something restored. This cycle has no sharp edges. No sudden beginning. No sudden end. It moves like breath. Like water. Like the slow turning of the sky. The faint light grows a little more. It spreads along the horizon, pale and soft, touching the edges of the land with a quiet glow. The shapes of the fields begin to appear again, first as shadows, then as gentle outlines. The river reflects this change. Its surface shifts from deep darkness to a faint, silvery tone. The movement of the water becomes slightly more visible, though still calm, still steady. A bird stirs somewhere near the reeds. It does not call out yet. It only moves, adjusting its place, sensing the change in the air. The breeze returns once more. This time, it carries the first hint of morning, a softness, a lightness that feels different from the cool stillness of night. Inside the home, the worker's breathing changes. Just slightly. Still slow. Still calm. But there is a small shift, a gentle movement toward waking. Not yet. But soon. The light continues to grow. The darkness lifts slowly, like a veil being drawn back without sound. The sky turns from deep blue to a softer shade, then to a pale gray touched with the faintest gold. The village remains quiet. But not for much longer. The moment of transition has begun. The worker lies still for a little while longer. Held between sleep and waking. Between night and day. Between stillness and movement. The world around him prepares itself once again. Not with noise. Not with force. But with the same quiet rhythm that has always guided it. The river flows. The fields wait. The sun approaches. And the day, slow and steady, begins to return. The light grows a little stronger. It spreads gently across the horizon, soft and pale, touching the edges of the land with a quiet certainty. The sky begins to take on a faint color, a hint of warmth beneath the lingering gray. The village is still mostly asleep. But something is changing. The stillness is no longer complete. It begins in small ways. A faint shift inside a home. A quiet breath becoming deeper. The soft movement of cloth as someone turns slightly in their rest. The worker opens his eyes. Not all at once. Slowly. As if waking is not a single moment, but a gradual return. The room is dim, but no longer dark. The early light slips through a small opening, forming a soft shape against the wall. He does not move immediately. He remains where he is, resting in that space between sleep and wakefulness. His breathing continues at the same steady pace. The quiet surrounds him. It is not the deep quiet of night anymore. It is a lighter quiet. A quiet that holds the promise of movement. Outside, the sky continues to brighten. The first birds begin to call. Their voices are soft at first, scattered, rising gently from different directions. Each call is simple, brief, then gone. The sounds do not break the calm. They become part of it. The worker slowly shifts. His hand moves across the woven mat. His fingers press lightly against its surface, feeling the familiar texture beneath them. He sits up. The motion is unhurried. There is no need to rush into the day. The air inside the room feels cooler than it will later, carrying the last traces of the night. It rests gently on his skin, calm and steady. Around him, others begin to stir. A quiet movement nearby. A soft breath. The beginning of waking, shared but silent. He stands. His feet meet the ground, cool and firm. The feeling travels upward, grounding him in the moment. He pauses again. Listening. There is still time before the full rhythm of the day begins. Outside, a door opens somewhere. The sound is soft, almost blending into the morning air. Another follows, then another, each one adding to the gradual return of life. The worker steps toward the entrance. He moves quietly, careful not to disturb those who are still resting. When he steps outside, the light touches him fully. The sky is no longer gray. It holds a soft gold now, spreading slowly upward. The sun itself is not yet fully visible, but its presence is clear. The air feels fresh, clean, still gentle. The Nile reflects the early light once more. Its surface glows faintly, moving with the same calm rhythm as before. Nothing about it has changed, yet each morning it feels new. The worker walks toward it. His steps follow the same path as the day before. And the day before that. And many days before. The ground is cool beneath his feet. Small traces of moisture linger along the path, left by the night air. Plants along the edges hold tiny drops that catch the light, shining briefly before fading. He reaches the river. He kneels. The water moves slowly before him. He cups it in his hands. Lifts it gently. And lets it fall across his face. The coolness is soft, refreshing. It brings him fully into the moment. He repeats the motion. Again. And again. Each movement is calm. Each moment unhurried. Behind him, the village continues to wake. More footsteps. More quiet voices. The soft beginning of another day. The worker rises. He looks out across the water for a moment longer. Then turns back. The rhythm is beginning again. The same rhythm. The same calm unfolding of time. And once more, without rush, without resistance, he steps into it. The morning settles gently over the village. The light is no longer faint. It has grown soft and steady, spreading across the land with a calm warmth that feels familiar, expected, and unchanging. The sun has risen just enough to touch the tops of the homes, the edges of the trees, and the quiet surface of the Nile. The worker walks back from the river. Drops of water still rest lightly on his skin, cooling him for a moment before they fade into the warmth of the air. His steps follow the same narrow path, shaped by many years of use. Each footstep fits naturally into the ground, as if it belongs there. Around him, the village continues to wake. More people are outside now. Some stand quietly near their homes, stretching their arms, turning their faces toward the rising sun. Others move slowly, beginning small tasks that mark the start of the day. A woman kneels near a low stone. In her hands, she holds grain. She begins to grind it with steady, practiced motion. The sound is soft and rhythmic, a gentle scraping, repeated again and again. It does not disturb the quiet. It becomes part of it. The worker pauses briefly as he passes. He does not speak. He does not need to. The movement of her hands, the calm focus in her posture, are familiar. This is how each day begins. He continues toward his home. Inside, the space is brighter now. The early light fills the room softly, revealing the simple shapes within the woven mats, the clay containers, the small tools placed carefully along the wall. A small fire is being prepared. Dry pieces of wood are arranged with care. A spark is coaxed gently into flame. It begins as a faint glow, then slowly grows, its light flickering against the surfaces around it. The smell of smoke rises. It is thin at first, then richer as the fire strengthens. It drifts upward, slipping through the opening above, carrying with it the quiet promise of warmth and food. The worker sits. He does not rush into movement. For a moment, he simply exists within the space, feeling the air, listening to the soft sounds of the morning, allowing the day to unfold around him. Nearby, the grain that was ground outside is brought in. It is placed carefully into a shallow container. Water is added slowly, forming a simple mixture. Hands move through it with care, shaping it, pressing it, forming it into small portions. The worker watches quietly. These motions are as familiar as his own. They have been repeated every day, shaped by time, unchanged in their purpose. The fire is ready now. The small portions of dough are placed upon a flat surface near the flame. They begin to cook slowly, the heat rising gently around them. The smell of bread fills the space. It is warm, soft, comforting. The worker breathes it in without thinking. It becomes part of the moment. Part of the morning. A child sits nearby. Still quiet, still waking. Their eyes follow the movement of the hands, the shifting of the fire, the slow transformation of the food. There is no impatience. Only quiet attention. The worker leans forward slightly. He reaches for a clay container. Inside, there is water. He lifts it, takes a small drink, then lowers it again. The action is simple. Measured. Unhurried. Outside, more sounds begin to rise. Footsteps along the paths. Soft voices greeting one another. The faint call of someone gathering others for the day's work. The village is fully awake now. But still calm. Still steady. The bread is ready. It is passed quietly, shared among those inside the home. No one takes more than they need. No one rushes to finish. The worker takes a piece. He holds it for a moment, feeling its warmth. Then he eats. Slowly. Each bite is soft, plain, and steady. It does not demand attention. It does not overwhelm the senses. It simply nourishes. He chews carefully. Swallows. Then takes another bite. The fire continues to flicker. The light of the morning grows stronger outside. The day is preparing itself once again. The worker finishes his meal. He brushes his hands lightly against his garment, removing small traces of flour. The motion is gentle, habitual. He stands. Around him, others begin to do the same. The moment of stillness before work is coming to an end. But it does not end suddenly. It fades. Like the night faded into morning. Like the quiet fades into movement. He reaches for his tool. It rests where he left it the evening before. He lifts it with ease, his hand fitting around it naturally, without adjustment. He steps toward the entrance. Before leaving, he pauses once more. Not for long. Just a brief moment of stillness. A quiet breath. A gentle awareness of the space, the people, the calm that holds everything together. Then he steps outside. The sun has risen higher now. Its light fills the village completely. The air begins to warm again. The rhythm of the day begins to take shape. Other workers move along the paths. Some carry tools. Some walk empty-handed. All move with the same quiet purpose. The worker joins them. His steps fall into the familiar pace. The same path awaits. The same field. The same steady work. Nothing is new. And yet, everything feels ready to begin again. The Nile flows beside them. The land stretches ahead. The sun continues its slow climb. And the worker, calm and steady, walks forward into another day. The path feels the same as it always does. It lies quietly between the village and the fields, worn smooth by countless steps taken over many years. There are no sharp edges, no sudden turns. Only a gentle line across the land, guiding those who follow it. The worker walks among others. Their movement is steady and quiet, like a slow current flowing toward the same destination. No one leads. No one follows too closely. Each person keeps a natural distance, shaped by habit rather than thought. The ground beneath their feet is firm. In some places, it is slightly uneven, pressed by time and use. Small stones rest along the surface, partially embedded, shifting slightly under each step. The worker's feet know where to land. He does not look down often. He does not need to. To one side, the Nile moves calmly. Its presence is constant, just beyond the edge of the path. The water reflects the brightening sky, its surface shifting gently, never still. The worker glances toward it for a moment. Then forward again. Palm trees rise along the riverbank. Their tall forms stand quietly against the sky. Their leaves move slightly in the morning breeze, casting faint, shifting shadows on the ground below. The air is warming. It still carries a softness from the early hours, but the promise of heat is already there. It rests lightly on the skin, growing stronger with each passing moment. The worker breathes slowly. The air moves in and out with ease. There is no strain. No effort beyond the natural movement of the body. Ahead, the fields begin to appear again. At first, only as shapes. Then, gradually, as clear lines of green and brown. The crops stretch outward in ordered rows, just as they did the day before. Nothing has changed. And yet, the day begins again. Other groups of workers approach from different paths. They merge quietly, forming a wider flow of movement. Still calm. Still without urgency. There is a shared understanding in this. No words are needed. The land calls for work. And the people come. The worker adjusts his grip on his tool. It rests easily in his hand, balanced and familiar. The surface is smooth from use, shaped by time, fitting naturally against his palm. The sun rises higher. Its light grows brighter, more direct. The shadows begin to shorten again, drawing closer to the feet of those who walk. The worker steps into the field. The soil feels slightly cool beneath the surface, still holding traces of the night. The scent of the earth rises gently, mixing with the fresh smell of growing plants. He moves to his place. Not marked, not assigned, but known. Each worker finds their space without confusion. Without direction. The rhythm is understood. The worker pauses briefly. He looks across the field. The rows stretch outward, calm and ready. The land waits, not with impatience, but with quiet expectation. He bends down. His hands reach toward the soil. And just like before, the work begins again. The field receives the workers without change. It does not greet them, and it does not resist them. It simply remains as it is, wide, quiet, and patient. The rows of crops stretch out in long, steady lines, each one holding small green leaves that rise gently toward the morning light. The worker stands still for a moment. Not because he is uncertain, but because this pause is part of the rhythm. A brief stillness before movement. A quiet moment where the body and the land seem to meet again, as they have done many times before. Then he bends. His hands move down toward the soil. The earth feels soft in some places, firmer in others. Near the surface, it is slightly dry, warmed already by the growing light. Just beneath, it holds moisture, cool and dark, carrying the life of the river within it. He presses his fingers gently into it. There is no rush. Each motion is careful, measured, shaped by long practice. He clears away small weeds that have grown between the crops. Their roots come free with a soft pull, leaving the soil open again. He places them aside. Not thrown, not scattered, but set down calmly. His hands move again. And again. The rhythm begins. It is not loud. It cannot be heard from far away. But it is steady, repeated, constant. The bending, the reaching, the lifting, the placing, each movement flows into the next without interruption. Around him, others follow the same quiet pattern. Some kneel low to the ground. Some remain slightly bent. Each body finds its own way to move, but the rhythm is shared. A wooden tool rests nearby. Simple in its shape, worn by time, its surface smooth from many hands. The worker reaches for it after a while, lifting it slowly. The weight is familiar, neither heavy nor light, but balanced. He presses it into the soil. Not with force. Just enough. The earth shifts under the pressure, loosening slightly. This allows air to move through, allows water to reach deeper, allows the roots to grow without struggle. He lifts the tool again. Then presses it down once more. The motion repeats. Steady. Quiet. Unchanging. The sun rises higher, its warmth spreads across his back, his shoulders, his arms. The air begins to lose its morning coolness, replaced by a gentle, growing heat. Still, the worker does not change his pace. There is no need to hurry before the heat comes. There is no need to slow before it fully arrives. The rhythm remains the same. A bird moves through the field. It steps lightly between the rows, its small feet barely disturbing the soil. It pauses now and then, tilting its head, then moving again. The worker notices it only briefly. Then returns to the ground before him. His focus is quiet, but steady. He is not thinking of the whole field. He is not thinking of the end of the day. Only this small space. This single row. This moment. The sound of work is soft. Hands brushing against leaves. The faint shift of soil. The light press of wood against earth. Nothing sharp. Nothing sudden. Even the breaths of the workers seem to follow the same slow rhythm, rising and falling gently. The worker shifts forward slightly. His knees press into the ground. The fabric of his garment gathers softly as he moves. Dust clings to it in faint traces, marking the passage of time. He reaches again. Pulls another small weed free. Places it aside. His fingers brush lightly against the roots of the crop, checking their place in the soil. If something is loose, he presses the earth gently back around it. Not tightly. Just enough. The plants stand quietly. They do not resist. They do not move. They simply grow. The worker continues. Minutes pass. Then more. Time is not measured here by numbers, but by repetition. Each completed motion becomes part of a larger, unbroken flow. The sun climbs. The light grows stronger. The shadows beneath the plants shorten, drawing inward, becoming small and faint. The air grows warmer. It settles across the field like a soft weight, not yet heavy, but present. A faint breeze passes again. It moves through the leaves, creating a soft whisper that spreads across the rows. The sound is gentle, almost like a quiet breath shared by the land itself. The worker pauses for a brief moment. He straightens his back slowly. His muscles feel the stretch, the release. He lifts his head slightly, looking across the field. Other workers move in the same quiet way, each one focused, each one part of the same steady effort. There is no signal. No command. Only a shared understanding of what must be done. He takes a slow breath. Then bends again. The tool returns to the soil. The hands return to their work. The rhythm continues. Unbroken. The earth receives each movement. The plants remain still. The sun rises higher still. And the day, once again, settles into its quiet, endless pattern of work. The work continues without change. There is no clear moment when 1 hour becomes the next. The movement of time is soft here, almost hidden within the repetition of hands and the steady presence of the sun above. The worker remains in his place. His body moves as it has been moving since the morning began. Bend, reach, lift, press. Each action follows the last without pause, without hesitation. It feels almost like stillness. Not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening in the same quiet way, again and again. The soil continues to shift beneath his hands. Sometimes loose. Sometimes firm. Always responsive to the gentle pressure he applies. He adjusts without thinking. If the earth is dry, he presses a little deeper. If it is damp, he moves more lightly. These decisions are not spoken. They are not even fully formed in the mind. They simply happen. A small insect moves across the ground. It travels slowly, navigating the uneven surface, climbing over small clumps of soil, disappearing briefly beneath a leaf before emerging again. The worker notices it only for a moment. Then his hands return to their path. The sun climbs further. The warmth becomes more present now. It rests on the skin longer, deeper. The air begins to feel thicker, though still gentle in its own way. Sweat forms slowly along the worker's brow. It moves in thin lines, fading as it falls or dries in the air. He does not wipe it away immediately. He continues his work. The body adjusts. It always does. Nearby, another worker shifts position. The movement is slow, careful, preserving the rhythm. There is no sudden change, no break in the calm. The sounds remain soft. The quiet brushing of leaves. The faint pressing of tools. The slow, steady breathing of those who work. The field itself seems to hold this rhythm. As if the land and the people are moving together, not separately. The worker reaches for a small clump of soil. He breaks it gently between his fingers, letting it fall back into place in a softer form. This allows the roots beneath to breathe more easily. He repeats the motion. Again. And again. Each time, the same. Each time, slightly different. The light continues to change. Though it is still morning, the brightness has deepened. The sky is clear, open, wide. There are no clouds to soften the sun's path. The shadows are small now. They gather closely around each plant, barely stretching outward. The worker shifts forward again. His feet press into the soil. The ground holds his weight without resistance. There is a quiet support in it, a steady presence beneath him. He continues. Time flows. Not quickly. Not slowly. Just steadily. The repetition becomes something gentle. Something calming. Each motion is known. Each moment expected. Nothing surprises. Nothing interrupts. The worker's mind rests within this rhythm. There are no distant thoughts. No need to think beyond the row before him. The world becomes smaller. Simpler. The soil. The plants. The movement of his hands. The warmth of the sun. The soft passing of the breeze. All of it blends together into a single, continuous experience. The work continues. And in its quiet repetition, it becomes almost like rest. The morning slowly gives way to midday. It does not happen in a single moment. It arrives quietly, carried in the changing light, in the way the shadows shrink and gather close to the ground, in the steady rise of warmth that settles over the land. The sun now stands high above. Its light falls almost straight down, touching the field evenly, leaving very little space for shade. The colors of the land grow brighter, yet softer at the same time, as if everything is wrapped in a pale, steady glow. The worker continues his labor. His movements remain calm, but there is a deeper weight in them now. Not heavy in a troubling way, but full, present. The hours of work have settled into his muscles. His arms lift a little slower. His back bends with more care. Still, the rhythm does not break. He presses the tool into the soil. Lifts it. Presses again. The same motion, repeated without interruption. The air grows warmer. It rests more firmly on the skin, no longer just a passing sensation, but something that surrounds and stays. Each breath carries that warmth inward, slow and steady. The worker inhales. Then exhales. His breathing remains even, though slightly deeper now. Sweat gathers more clearly along his brow, along his neck, across his arms. It moves slowly, not in sudden drops, but in thin, quiet lines that fade into the dust of the day. He does not rush to wipe it away. There is no need. The body continues as it always does. Nearby, another worker pauses. He straightens his back slowly, placing his hands on his hips for a moment. His gaze lifts toward the horizon, then toward the sky, as if simply acknowledging the sun's place above. No words are spoken. After a few breaths, he bends again. The rhythm continues. A faint stillness settles over the field. The breeze that once passed gently has become less frequent now. The air feels more settled, more quiet, as if resting under the weight of the midday sun. The leaves of the crops move less. They stand almost still, their green surfaces catching the light without shifting. The worker's hands continue to move through them. He lifts a leaf gently, checking beneath it. He presses the soil around its base, ensuring it holds firm. Each plant receives the same quiet attention. The tool rests beside him for a moment. He uses his hands alone now. Fingers pressing. Thumb smoothing. Palm resting briefly against the earth. There is a closeness in this. A direct connection between the body and the land. The soil feels warmer now than it did in the morning. Near the surface, it holds the heat of the sun. Beneath, it remains cooler, carrying moisture upward in slow, unseen movement. The worker senses this without thinking. His hands adjust accordingly. He presses deeper where needed. Lighter where the earth is already soft. Time continues. The sun remains high. It feels almost still, though it moves slowly, quietly, beyond immediate notice. The worker shifts his position. His knees lift from the ground, then settle again in a new place. The fabric of his garment brushes softly against the soil, leaving faint marks that will soon disappear. A distant sound rises. Perhaps from another part of the field. A voice, low and calm. It does not call for attention. It simply exists, then fades. The quiet returns. The worker takes a brief pause. He leans back slightly, placing his hands behind him on the ground. His head tilts upward just enough to feel the full light of the sun on his face. His eyes close for a moment. Not in sleep. Just in rest. His breath slows. The warmth surrounds him. The stillness holds. Then, gently, he returns to his work. He reaches for the tool again. The wood feels warm now, having rested under the sun. It fits into his hand as it always does. He presses it into the soil. Lifts. Presses again. The motion continues. The field remains quiet. The people within it move like a slow, steady pattern, each one separate, yet part of the same whole. The sun begins, almost without notice, to shift. Not downward yet, but away from its highest point. The light softens just slightly. The air remains warm, but a faint change begins. The worker does not look up. He does not need to. The body knows. The day is turning, even if slowly. He continues his steady work. Each movement careful. Each breath calm. The land beneath him remains patient. The plants continue to grow. The river flows beyond, unseen but constant. And the long, quiet moment of midday begins to drift, almost imperceptibly, toward afternoon. The hours of the day begin to settle into the body. Not as pain, not as strain, but as a quiet heaviness that comes from steady movement repeated over time. The worker feels it in his arms, in his shoulders, in the gentle pull along his back. It is familiar. It does not surprise him. It arrives the same way each day. Slowly. Gently. Without interruption. He continues to move. But now, each motion carries a deeper awareness. His hands do not rush. His body does not resist. Instead, everything adjusts to the rhythm of the effort. He bends more carefully. He rises more slowly. The transitions between movements become softer, more deliberate. The sun has shifted slightly. It is no longer directly overhead. Its light now falls at a subtle angle, though still strong, still steady. The shadows begin to return, faint at first. They stretch just a little beyond the feet of the workers, marking the slow passage of time. The worker notices this in a quiet way. Not by looking, but by feeling the change in the light. The air remains warm, but something within it begins to ease. A faint breeze returns. Very light. Barely there. But enough to move the edges of leaves, enough to touch the skin with a gentle cooling presence. The worker pauses again. This time, he takes a slightly longer rest. He sits back on his heels, letting his hands rest in his lap. His fingers are still, holding the memory of movement without continuing it. He breathes in slowly. The air feels different now. Still warm. But softer. He breathes out. Around him, others do the same. Not all at once. But gradually. One worker sits. Another stands still for a moment. Another wipes his brow and looks across the field. There is no signal. No shared command. Only a natural understanding of the body's need for brief stillness. The field grows quieter. Not silent. But softer. The sounds of movement lessen for a time. The wind moves again, slightly stronger now. It passes across the land, brushing through the crops, carrying with it the scent of earth and water. The smell is calm, grounding, steady. The worker lifts his hand. He wipes the sweat from his brow now. The motion is slow. Unnecessary to rush. He looks across the field. The rows stretch on, just as they did in the morning, though now marked by the work that has been done. The soil appears softer, more open, shaped by careful hands. There is a quiet sense of progress. Not measured in distance, but felt. He remains seated for a few breaths more. Then, gently, he leans forward. His hands return to the ground. His body shifts back into position. The work resumes. The tool presses into the soil once more. Lifts. And presses again. The rhythm returns, unchanged. The body continues, even with its quiet weariness. Not pushing against it. Not resisting it. But moving with it. The sun lowers further. The shadows grow a little longer. The light softens slightly more. The day continues its slow, steady turning. And the worker, calm and patient, continues with it. The afternoon begins to loosen its hold. The sun, once steady and high, has moved further along its quiet path. Its light is still warm, but no longer as strong. It spreads across the field at a gentle angle now, touching the tops of the plants and casting longer shadows across the soil. The worker continues. His hands move in the same familiar way, though the pace has softened slightly. Not slower in intention, but more relaxed, more at ease within the rhythm that has carried him through the day. The air begins to change. It is still warm, but lighter now. The weight of midday has eased, replaced by a softer feeling that moves through the field like a quiet breath. A breeze passes. It is more noticeable this time. It travels across the rows, lifting the leaves gently, creating a soft, continuous rustling that moves like a wave. The sound spreads slowly, touching each part of the field before fading again. The worker lifts his head slightly. He feels the breeze against his skin. For a moment, he does nothing. Then, as gently as before, he returns to his work. The tool presses into the soil. Lifts. Presses again. The repetition continues, but now there is a subtle sense of nearing completion. Not in any urgent way, but as a quiet awareness that the day is moving toward its end. Nearby, a few workers begin to shift more often. Some stand to stretch. Others take a few steps between rows, adjusting their position, finishing smaller sections of work. No one speaks loudly. No one calls out. The quiet remains. The worker reaches for a small plant. He adjusts the soil around its base, pressing gently to support it. His fingers move with care, ensuring the roots remain steady. He pauses to look at it. Just for a moment. Then he moves on. The light grows warmer in color. The pale brightness of midday deepens into a soft gold. The field takes on a different tone, as if wrapped in a calm, glowing layer. The worker notices this shift without thinking. It is something he has seen many times. Something his body understands without needing to name. The shadows stretch further now. They reach across the rows, creating long, quiet shapes that move slowly as the sun lowers. The worker steps carefully through them. His feet follow the same familiar paths, avoiding the crops, respecting the order that has been maintained throughout the day. A distant voice rises. Soft. Brief. Perhaps calling to another worker, perhaps marking a small moment of coordination. The sound does not disturb the calm. It fades quickly into the open air. The worker continues. His movements remain steady. The soil continues to respond. The plants remain still. The breeze returns again, lingering a little longer this time. It carries with it a cooler touch, a sign that the heat of the day is fading. The leaves respond with a soft, continuous whisper that fills the field without overwhelming it. The worker breathes in. The air feels easier now. He breathes out. His shoulders relax slightly. The quiet weariness in his body remains, but it is lighter now, softened by the change in the air. He finishes another small section. Then another. Each completed movement brings the work closer to its natural pause. There is no sudden end. Only a gradual slowing. The sun lowers further. Its light becomes deeper, richer, spreading long across the land. The sky begins to show faint traces of color near the horizon, soft hints of orange and gold. The worker stands. He straightens his back slowly, feeling the length of his body after many hours of bending and reaching. His arms rest at his sides for a moment. He looks across the field. Others are beginning to stand as well. Not all at once, but gradually. The movement spreads, quiet and unspoken. The workday is nearing its end. The worker takes a slow breath. Then bends one last time. His hands move through the soil once more, completing the small task before him. He presses the earth gently, ensuring it holds firm. Then he lifts his hands. And does not return them to the ground. He reaches for his tool. It rests where he placed it earlier, warmed slightly by the sun. He lifts it with ease, holding it at his side. Around him, others gather their tools as well. The field begins to shift from motion to stillness. The constant rhythm of work fades into a softer pattern of movement, workers stepping away from the rows, turning toward the paths that lead home. The worker takes one last look. The crops stand quietly, touched by the golden light. The soil rests, shaped and tended. Everything feels complete. For now. He turns. His steps begin again, but this time away from the field. The breeze follows gently. The sun continues its slow descent. And the day, calm and steady, begins to close. The path away from the field feels different in the evening. It is the same path as before, shaped by the same ground, bordered by the same quiet edges of green and earth. Yet the light has changed, and with it, the feeling of the journey. The worker walks slowly. His body carries the memory of the day's labor, but not as a burden. It is a quiet presence, resting within his muscles, a steady reminder of what has been done. Around him, the other workers move in the same calm way. No one rushes ahead. No one falls far behind. There is a natural flow to their steps, as if the path itself sets the pace. The sun lowers toward the horizon. Its light stretches long across the land, casting soft, extended shadows that move gently with each step. The colors deepen gold, soft orange, and hints of red blending quietly into the sky. The worker glances toward the Nile. The river reflects the changing light, its surface glowing softly as it continues its steady movement. The water does not hurry, even as the day fades. Palm trees stand still along its edge. Their leaves catch the evening light, creating delicate patterns of shadow and brightness that shift slightly in the breeze. The air feels cooler now. Not cold. Just softer. Easier to carry. The worker breathes slowly, allowing the change to settle into him. The path beneath his feet feels familiar. Each step is placed without thought, guided by memory and repetition. The ground holds the marks of many who have walked before, faint traces that blend together over time. A bird flies overhead. Its wings move slowly, cutting across the fading light. It does not call out. It simply passes, then disappears into the distance. The worker continues. The village begins to appear ahead. At first, only as shapes. Then, gradually, as clear forms, low walls, flat roofs, small openings that hold the quiet spaces within. Thin lines of smoke rise into the air once more. The evening fires have been lit. The scent reaches the worker before he arrives. It is warm. Familiar. Comforting. Children move along the paths. Their voices are soft, not loud or hurried. Some pause to watch the returning workers. Others continue their quiet movements, staying close to the homes. The worker steps into the village. The ground changes slightly beneath his feet, more compact, more shaped by daily life. The paths wind gently between the homes, leading each person toward their place of rest. A woman stands near an entrance. She looks up as the worker approaches. There is no sudden greeting. Only a quiet recognition. He nods slightly. Then continues. He reaches his home. The doorway stands open, the inside dim compared to the fading light outside. The air within is cooler, holding the calm of a space that has waited throughout the day. He steps inside. For a moment, he stands still. The sounds of the village soften around him, filtered by the walls. The space feels enclosed, steady, safe. He sets down his tool. It rests where it will remain until morning. There is no need to think about it now. Water has been prepared. He kneels once more. His hands move slowly, lifting the water, letting it fall across his arms, his face, his neck. The coolness washes away the dust of the field, the warmth of the sun. He repeats the motion. Again. And again. Each time, the same. Each time, gentle. The light outside continues to fade. The sky deepens. The evening settles. Inside, the worker prepares to rest. The long day has come to its quiet close. And the calm of night begins to return once more. The village does not become silent all at once. It softens. Slowly. Like a long breath being released after a full day of holding still. Inside the home, the worker remains near the center of the room for a moment after washing. The air is cooler here than outside, but it carries the faint memory of the day, the warmth of fire, the scent of grain, the quiet traces of smoke that linger in the walls. He sits down slowly. Not with heaviness, not with collapse, but with a calm acceptance. as if the body has finally reached a place it recognizes as rest. Outside, the light continues to fade. The sun is no longer visible. Only its final glow remains, stretched thin across the horizon in soft bands of gold and muted orange. The sky above begins to deepen into a darker blue, and the first small stars return, faint at first, then slowly clearer. Inside, a small fire burns. It is not large. It does not need to be. Its flame is steady, low, and controlled. It casts gentle light across the interior of the home, moving softly over the walls, over the floor, over the simple objects placed carefully in their familiar places. The worker watches it for a moment. There is something calming in the flame's movement. It does not rush. It does not stop. It simply continues. Nearby, food is prepared again in a quiet way, just as in the morning but different in feeling. The pace is slower now, the energy softened by the end of the day. Bread is brought out. Perhaps a small portion of lentils or vegetables, depending on what the land has provided. Everything is simple. Everything is familiar. The worker receives his portion. He does not speak much. There is no need. He eats slowly, each bite unhurried, as if allowing the body to fully understand that the work is finished for now. The taste is plain, grounded, comforting in its simplicity. Around him, the others in the home move gently through the same quiet routine. There is no noise beyond what is necessary: the soft placement of hands, the faint sound of containers being moved, the low shifting of bodies settling into rest. Outside, the village continues its own slow transition. Fires appear in small points of light between homes. Each one marks a household, a small center of warmth against the growing night. Voices become fewer. Footsteps become lighter. The energy of the day fades into something softer, something that no longer belongs to work or effort, but to rest and presence. The worker finishes his meal. He places his hands briefly in his lap. There is a long stillness in this moment. Not empty, but complete. The kind of stillness that comes after effort has naturally ended. He looks toward the fire again. The flame flickers slightly, responding to the faint movement of air within the room. Shadows shift gently along the walls, never harsh, never sudden. The light feels almost like breathing. In and out. In and out. The worker leans back slightly. His body begins to release the tension held through the long hours of labor. His shoulders loosen. His back settles. His breathing deepens without effort. Outside, the night grows darker. The stars are now more visible, scattered widely across the sky like quiet points of memory. The river continues its slow movement beyond the village, unseen but always present. Its rhythm never changes. It does not need to. Inside the home, there is no urgency left. Only the gradual closing of the day. The worker remains seated for a while longer. He listens to the small sounds around him: the soft shifting of others preparing for sleep, the faint crackle of the fire, the distant, almost imagined sounds of the village settling fully into night. Time feels slower here. Not measured. Not marked. Just flowing. Eventually, he stands. Not because he must, but because the body understands what comes next. Sleep is approaching. He moves toward the woven mat where he rests each night. It is simple, shaped by repeated use, softened by time. He lies down slowly. His body adjusts to the surface without resistance. Outside, the wind moves lightly across the village, brushing against walls, passing over rooftops, fading into the fields beyond. The fire inside the home is lowered. Its glow becomes softer, dimmer, more distant. The room begins to darken. The worker closes his eyes. And the day, long and steady, finally completes its quiet circle. The night does not arrive loudly. It spreads. Gradually. Across the land, across the river, across the fields that worked under the sun all day and now rest without movement. The village is still awake in small ways, but only briefly, only gently. Most homes have already settled into quiet. Fires remain low, reduced to soft embers that glow faintly in the darkness. The worker sleeps. His breathing is slow, steady, unchanged by the world outside. Around him, others sleep in the same way. Bodies resting on woven mats. Limbs relaxed. Faces softened by rest. There is a shared stillness across the village, even though each home holds its own small world. Outside, the air is cooler now. It moves lightly across the ground, touching the soil of the paths, the edges of the fields, the surface of the Nile. The river continues without pause. It reflects the night sky, though dimly, carrying the faint shimmer of stars across its surface. Its movement is steady, almost invisible in the darkness, yet always present. The fields are still. No hands move through them now. No tools press into the soil. The plants rest where they stand, their leaves quiet, their growth continuing in silence. The village sounds fade further. A distant call of an animal. The faint movement of wind through reeds. A soft shift of something small in the darkness. Then stillness again. The night deepens. The stars remain fixed, spread across the sky in patterns that feel both distant and close at the same time. They do not change quickly. They do not rush. The worker sleeps through all of it. His body remains steady. His mind quiet. The rhythm of his life pauses here, not ending, only resting. Inside the home, the last glow of fire fades further. The light becomes almost nothing. Only darkness remains, soft and complete. And within that darkness, the village continues its slow, peaceful breathing. Not awake. Not active. But alive in rest. The hours move forward gently. Unmarked. Uncounted. Until, somewhere far away on the horizon, the faintest suggestion of change begins again. But for now, everything remains still. The world rests. And the night holds it gently. The night settles into its deepest form. This is the part of night where everything feels almost suspended, as if the world is holding still between one breath and the next. The sky is dark, but not empty. It is full, layered, and wide, carrying thousands of small points of light that remain distant and calm. The village lies quiet beneath it. Homes made of mud and straw rest close together, their shapes softened by darkness. From a distance, they seem almost like part of the land itself, blending into the earth that surrounds them. Inside one of these homes, the worker sleeps. His body is still. His breathing is slow and even, so steady that it almost feels like part of the room itself rather than something alive within it. The woven mat beneath him holds the shape of his rest. His arms are relaxed, his face calm, untouched by tension. The long hours of labor have faded from his muscles now, replaced by deep, uninterrupted rest. Around him, others sleep in the same quiet way. A child shifts slightly in sleep, then becomes still again. A faint sound of fabric moving against the floor comes and goes. Then silence returns. Outside, the wind passes gently through the village. It does not disturb anything. It moves carefully, as if it understands the need for stillness. It touches the edges of walls, the tops of roofs, the narrow paths between homes. Then it fades. The Nile continues its slow movement beyond the village. It does not change in the night. It does not rest or pause. It simply flows, steady and ancient, carrying the same rhythm it has always carried. In the darkness, its presence is almost felt more than seen. A low, distant sound from the riverbank rises briefly. Perhaps a small animal moving near the water. Perhaps something shifting in the reeds. It is unclear. And then it disappears again. The night does not respond. It simply continues. Time passes in a way that is difficult to measure here. There are no shadows shifting quickly. No strong changes in light. Only a gradual, almost invisible movement forward, like water flowing in a very slow stream. Inside the home, the air is cool. It carries the faint scent of earth, of ash from earlier fires, and of the day that has already passed. These smells do not feel strong anymore. They feel settled, softened by time. The worker remains asleep. His body makes small adjustments now and then, tiny movements that come without waking. A slight turn of the shoulder. A deeper breath. Then stillness again. The body knows how to rest fully here. It does not resist the night. It sinks into it. Outside, the stars continue their silent presence. They do not move in any way that can be easily noticed. They remain steady, scattered across the vast sky like quiet witnesses to everything below. The land beneath them is still. The fields are dark, resting after the long day of labor. The soil holds the memory of hands that worked it, but now it rests without disturbance. No footsteps cross it. No tools press into it. Only silence remains. The village feels smaller in the night. Not physically, but in presence. Everything becomes closer, quieter, more contained. Sounds that would normally be unnoticed during the day now feel distant and rare. A soft creak from a wooden beam. A faint movement inside another home. Then silence again. The night continues its slow passage. Deep. Even. Unbroken. Inside the worker's home, the fire has long since faded. Only darkness remains, but it is not heavy. It is gentle, familiar. It wraps around the space like a blanket that does not press, only holds. The worker sleeps within it. Unaware of time passing. Unaware of the world outside. Only existing in rest. The hours move forward. Slowly. Softly. Until, somewhere far beyond the horizon, the darkness begins to thin in the slightest way. Not yet dawn. Not yet change. Only the earliest suggestion that the night is not endless. But even that is distant. For now, the world remains in its quietest state. The village breathes slowly in sleep. The river flows without sound. And the night continues to hold everything gently in place. The darkness does not break. It simply begins to loosen. Very slowly. So slowly that it would not be noticed at first unless one were already waiting for it. The sky remains dark, but its depth begins to soften at the edges, especially toward the farthest line of the horizon. There is no color yet. Only a slight easing of black into something less absolute. Inside the village, nothing changes immediately. The homes remain still. The people remain asleep. The worker continues to rest, his breathing steady, his body unchanged in its calm position. The night still holds him fully. But beyond the village, the sky is already beginning its quiet shift. The stars are still visible. Still present. But their sharpness feels slightly softened, as if the air between them and the earth has grown just a little thinner. The Nile reflects this subtle change. Its surface remains dark, but it no longer feels as deep in color. There is the faintest suggestion of openness in its reflection, a slight easing of contrast. The wind returns briefly. It moves across the land with the same gentleness as before, but now it carries something slightly different. Not warmth yet, not light, but a sense of transition. A feeling that something is approaching. Still far away. Still quiet. Inside the home, the worker shifts slightly. A small movement. Almost nothing. His body is still deep in rest, but there is a subtle change in rhythm, as if the body itself senses the shift in the world outside without waking. Then stillness again. The village remains asleep. But the night is no longer at its deepest point. It has begun its return. Slowly. Without announcement. The horizon continues to lighten in a way that is almost invisible unless watched carefully for a long time. The darkness there is not as absolute as before. It softens. It opens. The world does not rush toward morning. It only leans gently in that direction. The fields remain silent. The paths remain empty. The river continues its flow. And the worker sleeps, unaware of the subtle change beginning above him. The cycle is not yet turning. But it is preparing. Quietly. Steadily. As it always does. The change is still very small. So small that it does not feel like morning yet. It is only a soft loosening in the darkness, a quiet shift in the way the night holds the sky. The stars are still there, steady and distant, but the blackness around them is no longer as deep as it was before. It feels as if the world is slowly remembering that light exists. But it does not remember all at once. It remembers slowly. Carefully. Like something waking from a long and peaceful sleep. The village remains still. The homes are quiet, their shapes resting low against the earth. Inside them, people continue to sleep without interruption. The night has not released them yet. The worker is still lying on his woven mat. His breathing remains steady, soft, and even. There is no urgency in his body, no signal that the day is near. Only deep rest, the kind that holds the body fully without resistance. Outside, the air has begun to shift. It is not warmer yet. It is not brighter yet. But it feels slightly less heavy than before, as if the night is no longer pressing down quite as firmly as it once was. The Nile continues its slow movement. It reflects the faintest change in the sky, though the reflection is still mostly dark. The water does not hurry. It never does. It simply moves forward in its long, unchanged rhythm. Along the edges of the village, a few small signs of life begin to appear. Not in people yet, but in preparation. A faint glow begins in one home. Very small. Almost invisible at first. A fire being gently restarted. Not for urgency. Not for work. But for the simple continuation of life. The flame grows slowly. Carefully. It does not flare up. It does not demand attention. It rises in quiet stages, as if it too is waking gently from sleep. The light it creates is soft and contained. It touches the inside of the home with a warm, flickering presence that contrasts with the coolness of the night outside. Still, most of the village remains asleep. The worker does not move yet. His body remains fully in rest. But there is something subtle happening in the world around him that is not yet strong enough to reach into his sleep. The sky continues its gradual change. The blackness is no longer complete. It has become something in between still night, but not the deepest part of it. A kind of waiting space between darkness and light. A pause in the cycle. A long, quiet inhale before the day begins again. A bird stirs somewhere far away. Not calling yet. Only shifting. Adjusting. As if sensing something that is still far off but approaching steadily. Inside another home, a faint movement occurs. A person turning in sleep. A soft exhale. Then stillness again. The village is beginning to feel less like a single block of silence and more like a collection of small, separate moments that are slowly preparing to connect again. The worker remains unchanged. Still resting. Still deep in the quietness of night. But the world around him is no longer entirely the same as it was a short time ago. Something is forming. Not quickly. Not sharply. But steadily. The horizon grows slightly lighter. Not enough to be called dawn. But enough that the darkness no longer feels absolute. The Nile reflects this shift again, now with a faint suggestion of movement in the color of the sky above it. Still dark water. Still calm. But with a subtle change in tone. Time continues its slow forward motion. The night is not ending yet. but it is no longer at its deepest point. It is beginning to turn. And in that turning, everything remains quiet. Everything remains still. Waiting. Just before the first real light arrives. The change in the sky grows a little more certain now. Still gentle. Still slow. But no longer only a suggestion. The darkness above the village has softened into something lighter, something that feels less like a closed space and more like an open one waiting to be filled. The stars remain, but they no longer feel as sharp or as distant as before. They seem to float in a sky that is slowly becoming aware of the coming day. The village begins to respond in the smallest possible ways. Not all at once. Not with any clear beginning. But in scattered, quiet moments that appear one by one, like drops of water forming before a stream begins to flow. Inside one home, the worker stirs. It is not a full waking. Not yet. Only a change in breathing, a slight shift of the body as sleep begins to loosen its hold. His hand moves a little against the woven mat, fingers relaxing and then resting again. Outside, the air feels different now. Still cool. Still calm. But it carries a faint sense of openness, as if the world has widened just slightly during the night. A small fire burns in another home. It is stronger now than before. The flame has grown steady, no longer just a fragile spark but a consistent glow that spreads warmth through the space around it. The light flickers against the walls in soft, patient patterns. One person is awake there. Sitting quietly. Preparing something simple. There is no hurry in their movement. Each action is slow and familiar, shaped by repetition rather than thought. The village is beginning to reconnect with itself. Not through sound yet. Not through conversation. But through presence. One home at a time. The worker opens his eyes. This time, fully. The room around him is still dim, but it is no longer deep night. There is a faint grayness now that softens the edges of everything inside. He does not move immediately. He lies still for a moment longer, letting the awareness of waking settle into him. His breath changes slightly, deeper now, more connected to the present moment. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. The horizon holds a thin line of lighter color. It is still faint, but it is now unmistakably different from the darkness above it. The Nile reflects this change in its own quiet way. The water remains calm, but the surface carries a slightly softer tone, as if it is preparing to mirror something brighter soon. Inside the village, more movement begins. A door opens gently. Then another. Then another. Each one is soft, unhurried, part of a shared rhythm that no one has spoken aloud but everyone understands. The worker sits up slowly. His body moves with ease, as if it already remembers the pattern of the morning. There is no resistance in his motion. Only transition. He places his feet on the ground. The surface feels cool beneath him. Real. Steady. Present. For a moment, he remains seated, still adjusting to the return from sleep. Around him, the room holds the faint memory of the night stillness, warmth that is fading, and the quiet scent of rest. Outside, the first more visible signs of morning preparation begin. A few fires are now clearly lit across the village. Small points of orange light scattered between homes. They are not bright yet, but they are consistent, marking the slow return of activity. Water is being moved in simple containers. Soft footsteps pass along narrow paths. The sound is still minimal, but it is no longer absent. The worker stands. Slowly. Carefully. His body transitions from rest into wakefulness without strain. Each movement is familiar, practiced over countless mornings before this one. He steps toward the opening of the home. The air outside greets him gently. Cooler than the fire-lit space inside. Wider. More open. He pauses at the entrance. Just for a moment. Looking out. The village is no longer fully asleep. But it is not fully awake either. It exists in a space between both states. A quiet in-between where life is beginning again, but softly, without rush. The sky above continues to brighten. Still not yet sunrise. But close enough that the land can feel it approaching. The worker steps outside. His feet meet the ground of the path. The same path as always. Worn smooth by time. Guiding him forward without need for thought. Around him, other figures move in similar silence. Each one emerging from their homes in their own time. Each one carrying the same quiet transition from night to day. No words are exchanged. Only presence. Only movement. The village is gently returning to itself. And the world, still calm, still soft, continues its slow opening toward morning. The morning is not fully here yet. But it is no longer far away. It exists now in the air itself, in the way the darkness has softened into something less absolute, something more forgiving. The sky above the village is no longer deep black. It is a layered gray-blue, holding the last traces of night while quietly preparing for light. The worker stands outside his home. He does not move quickly. There is no reason to. The ground beneath his feet is cool and familiar, shaped by countless mornings before this one. The path stretches gently in both directions, leading toward other homes, toward the river, toward the fields that will soon call for work again. But for now, nothing calls. Everything is still in the process of becoming. Around him, the village is no longer silent. But it is not loud either. It is filled with soft beginnings. A door opening. A container being lifted. A faint sound of water poured carefully from one vessel into another. These are not sounds of urgency. They are sounds of return. Inside nearby homes, fires are now more clearly visible. Small flames flicker steadily, casting warm light against clay walls. The light does not reach far outside yet, but within each home, it creates a small world of warmth against the cool morning air. The worker takes a slow breath. The air feels different than the night. Not warmer yet, but less heavy. More open. He adjusts his clothing slightly, the fabric soft from use, shaped by many days of movement and labor. His body feels rested, but not still. There is already a quiet readiness in it, as if it remembers what comes next. He begins to walk. Not toward the fields yet. Not toward work. But simply forward, along the familiar path between homes. Each step is unhurried. Measured. Natural. Around him, others are doing the same. Some walk alone. Some move in small groups. There is no coordination needed. Everyone understands the rhythm without needing to speak it. The village is gradually assembling itself again. Not as a crowd, but as a slow pattern of lives rejoining the same shared day. The sky continues to brighten. A thin line of pale light now stretches along the horizon, growing slightly wider with each passing moment. It is still soft, still gentle, but it is no longer uncertain. It is becoming morning. The Nile reflects this change more clearly now. Its surface is no longer entirely dark. A faint silver tone moves across it, shifting with the slow current. The river remains steady, unchanged in its movement, but now it carries the first visible signs of the coming day. The worker walks closer to the river's direction. Not because he is required to, but because this is part of the morning rhythm. The path widens slightly here. The air feels more open, less enclosed by homes. Small clusters of reeds line the edges of the water, still and quiet, barely moving in the faint breeze that passes through them. He slows. Then stops near the riverbank. He looks out over the water. The Nile flows as it always does. Unchanged. Uninterrupted. Its movement is not fast, but it is constant, like a long breath that never ends. The surface reflects the sky above, and now that sky is slowly beginning to lighten, the river responds in kind. Around him, other villagers gather at similar points along the bank. Some wash their hands. Some collect water. Some simply stand quietly for a moment, watching the slow return of light across the surface. There is no conversation. Only presence. Only the shared awareness that the day is beginning again. The worker kneels at the edge of the river. The ground is slightly damp beneath him. Cool. Firm. He cups water in his hands. The motion is slow, practiced, natural. He brings it to his face. The water is colder than the air, and it wakes him more fully, drawing the last softness of sleep from his body. He repeats the motion. Again. And again. Each movement is simple. Each moment is quiet. Around him, the village continues to awaken. More fires are now visible. More doors are open. More figures move along the paths, slowly becoming part of the day. The sky above shifts further. The gray begins to break. A faint hint of warm color appears near the horizon, subtle but growing. The worker stands again. Water still dripping from his hands. He looks once more across the river. Then turns back toward the village. The morning is no longer distant. It is arriving. Gently. Completely. And the world, once again, begins its steady return to movement. The village now feels different than it did only a short while ago. Not loud. Not busy. But awake in layers. Each home now holds its own small center of life again, fires glowing steadily, people moving slowly around them, preparing what the day will require. The worker walks back along the path from the river. His skin still carries a faint coolness from the water. The air around him is slowly warming, though it is still early enough that the morning feels gentle rather than hot. He passes between homes. Each one shows signs of quiet activity. A woman stirring grain. A man tending a small fire. A child sitting near an entrance, watching the movement of the village with half-awake eyes. Everything is calm. Everything is familiar. He returns to his home. Inside, the fire has already been rebuilt. It burns more steadily now, no longer just a spark but a stable flame that provides both light and warmth. The space feels alive in a soft way. Not energetic, but present. Food is being prepared again. The same simple rhythm as always. Grain ground into flour. Water added slowly. Dough shaped by hand. Placed near the heat. The process is unhurried, but continuous, as if the morning itself is guiding each step. The worker sits near the fire. He watches the process without speaking. There is comfort in the repetition. In the certainty. In the fact that nothing needs to be explained. The smell of bread begins to rise. Warm. Faintly earthy. Soft. It fills the space slowly, becoming part of the morning atmosphere, blending with the scent of firewood and clay walls. Outside, the light has grown stronger. The horizon is now clearly pale gold, spreading outward in a wide, gentle band. The sun is still not fully visible. But its presence is undeniable. The village responds further. Now, more sounds emerge. Not loud. But distinct. Footsteps along paths. Occasional voices calling softly between homes. The distant sound of tools being gathered. This is the moment where the village transitions fully from rest into preparation. The worker receives his portion of bread. He holds it for a moment before eating. It is still warm. Simple. Familiar. Each bite is slow, steady, unremarkable in taste, but complete in its purpose. It fills without distraction. It satisfies without demand. Around him, others eat in the same way. There is no rush. Even now, before work begins again, there is still calm. The rhythm is not broken. Only extended. After eating, the worker stands again. He moves toward the entrance of the home. Outside, the village is now fully awake in structure, though not yet fully in motion. People are preparing. Gathering tools. Speaking briefly. Organizing themselves for the tasks ahead. The fields are waiting. The river continues its flow. The sun is rising further now, just beginning to clear the horizon. And the day, fully formed at last, is ready to continue its long, steady path forward. The village does not rush into the day. It simply continues it. There is no clear boundary between preparation and movement, no sharp moment where rest becomes labor. Instead, everything shifts in soft layers, one slow change folding into the next. The worker steps outside his home again. The light is stronger now. Not harsh. Not bright in a sudden way. But present in a fuller sense, as if the sky itself has opened a little wider and allowed more of the world to be seen. The air has begun to warm. Still gentle, still early, but no longer cool in the way it was during the deepest part of night. It carries a quiet promise of heat that will return later in the day. Around him, the village is already in motion. People move along the narrow paths between homes. Some carry tools. Some carry small bundles. Some walk with empty hands, knowing they will receive what they need where they are going. There is no confusion in the movement. No urgency. Only direction. The worker adjusts his grip on his tool. It rests easily in his hand, familiar as always. The weight of it is not something he notices anymore. It is simply part of his body's memory. He begins to walk. The path toward the fields opens ahead of him, the same as every day before this one. The ground is still slightly cool in shaded places, but where the sunlight reaches, it is already beginning to warm. Small stones embedded in the earth catch the light briefly before fading again as he passes. The Nile remains beside them. Constant. Unchanging in its movement. It flows without hesitation, carrying the reflection of the sky that continues to brighten above it. The surface is no longer dark, but layered with soft silver and pale gold. The worker walks in silence. Around him, others do the same. There is a shared understanding in this movement. No words are needed. The fields begin to appear ahead. Not yet fully alive with activity, but waiting. The crops stand in ordered rows, shaped by many days of care, many seasons of attention. The soil beneath them holds the memory of yesterday's work. And the work before that. And the work before that. The field does not forget. It only waits. The worker steps onto the edge of it. The ground beneath his feet feels different here. Softer. More open. Carrying the presence of life that has been tended carefully over time. He pauses for a moment. Just standing. Looking across the space where the day will unfold. There is no command that brings him here. No sound that calls him. Only the quiet return of a rhythm that has always existed. He bends slightly. Not yet working. Just settling into position. Around him, others arrive. One by one. Each taking their place within the field without instruction. The sun rises higher. The light becomes warmer, spreading evenly across the land now, touching every part of the field in a soft, steady glow. Shadows shorten again. The day has fully returned. A breeze passes through. It moves gently across the crops, creating a soft, unified motion across the field. Leaves shift together, then settle again, like a slow breath shared by everything growing there. The worker lowers himself. His hands reach the soil. And the work begins again. Not as something new. But as something continued. Familiar. Steady. Unbroken. The earth receives his touch without resistance. The rhythm returns without effort. Bend. Lift. Press. Release. Around him, the same pattern repeats across the field. Not synchronized, but aligned. Each person moving within their own space, yet part of a larger quiet structure that holds the day together. The sun climbs. The light strengthens. And the field, once again, becomes a place of steady human movement shaped by patience, repetition, and time. The work deepens into itself. Not changing. Not accelerating. But continuing so steadily that it begins to feel less like movement and more like a kind of stillness shaped by repetition. The worker remains bent over the soil. His hands move with quiet precision, guided not by thought but by memory. Each motion is simple on its own, but together they form a rhythm that fills the field. The earth responds softly. It yields where pressure is needed. It holds firm where support is required. There is no resistance between hand and ground, only interaction shaped by long familiarity. The sun rises higher. Its light now rests more directly on the field. The warmth increases gradually, not sharply, but in a way that becomes noticeable only after time has passed. The air thickens slightly. Not heavy. Just fuller. The worker breathes through it without difficulty. In. Out. Steady. Unchanged. Around him, others continue the same pattern of work. Some shift position slightly. Some move to different rows. Some pause briefly before resuming. But the rhythm itself does not break. It continues through every movement. A small insect moves across the soil near the worker's hand. He notices it only for a moment. It disappears into the shadow of a plant. Then the focus returns to the ground. The field stretches wide in all directions. Endless in feeling, though not in reality. Each section is part of a larger whole, shaped carefully over time, tended with consistency rather than force. The worker presses his hand into the soil again. It feels slightly warmer now than earlier. Closer to the surface, the heat of the sun has begun to settle into the ground itself. But deeper down, the earth remains cool. Balanced. Stable. The contrast is subtle but constant. Time passes without markers. There are no bells. No signals. Only the shifting angle of light and the gradual sensation of hours moving forward. The worker's body adjusts naturally. Fatigue is present, but not sharp. It exists as a background feeling, something that rises and fades with each motion. He does not fight it. He moves with it. A distant sound travels across the field. Perhaps a voice. Perhaps a tool striking wood. It fades before it becomes distinct. The quiet returns immediately. The wind comes again briefly. It moves through the crops, touching them all at once, then disappearing as quickly as it arrived. The worker pauses for a moment. Just a breath. Just a still point in the repetition. Then he continues. The field remains unchanged in appearance, but deeply changed in presence. Each section now holds the trace of work already done. Each plant stands in soil that has been shaped, adjusted, tended. The sun continues its path upward. The day continues without interruption. And the worker, like all others around him, remains within the steady rhythm of labor that defines this place, this time, this quiet, enduring life. The morning does not end suddenly. It only becomes heavier in its brightness. The sun has climbed higher now, settling into a position where its light feels more complete, more present across the entire field. There are no longer soft transitions between shade and warmth in the same way as earlier. Instead, everything feels evenly touched by daylight. The worker continues his motion. Bend. Lift. Press. Release. Each movement remains familiar, but the body now carries a quieter weight. Not exhaustion in a sharp sense, but the slow awareness that many hours have already passed since the day began. The soil beneath his hands is warmer again. The heat from the sun has moved deeper into it now, not just resting on the surface but slowly entering the upper layers. Still, beneath that warmth, there is always a cooler depth that never disappears. The worker feels both at once without needing to think about it. Above him, the sky is steady, clear, wide, unbroken. The light is strong enough now that the field feels fully revealed in every direction. The rows of crops are clearly visible, stretching outward in ordered lines, shaped by repetition and care. Around him, the other workers continue. Their movements are slower than before, but not stopped. Everything has adjusted to the growing warmth. Clothing sticks slightly to the skin in places where sweat has formed. It is not uncomfortable enough to break rhythm, only enough to be noticed briefly and then ignored. The wind appears only in small moments. Short passes across the field, then gone again. The air feels more still than earlier, as if the world itself has settled into a steady, unmoving state for this part of the day. The worker pauses briefly. He straightens his back slowly. His eyes lift for a moment toward the horizon. The river is still visible in the distance, a faint line of brightness reflecting the strong sky above it. It moves with the same quiet persistence as always. He breathes in. The air feels warmer now. He breathes out. Then he returns to the ground. The rhythm resumes. The repetition continues without change, but the experience of it has subtly shifted. Each motion now feels slightly longer, as if time between actions has stretched. Not in a dramatic way. Just enough to be felt in the body. A small adjustment in how effort is experienced. The sun continues its steady rise. Its position now suggests that midday is approaching, though not yet fully present. The field feels more enclosed in light, as if the brightness itself has expanded to fill every available space. There are fewer shadows now. What remains of them is short, close to the ground, unable to stretch far. The worker's hands move through the soil again. He feels its texture clearly. Dry in some places. Slightly firm in others. Soft where it has been recently turned. Each variation is familiar. Each variation expected. Nearby, another worker shifts position. The movement is slow and careful. No urgency exists in the field now. Only continuation. Only endurance. The sound of tools remains low and consistent. Soft contact with soil. Occasional scraping of wood against earth. Brief rustling of plants as hands move through them. Everything blends into a continuous soundscape that feels less like individual actions and more like a shared environment. The worker wipes his hand briefly against his clothing. Then returns it to the soil. His breathing remains steady, though deeper now than earlier in the morning. The body is beginning to feel the accumulation of hours, but it continues without resistance. The rhythm is stronger than fatigue. Stronger than heat. Stronger than stillness. The sun reaches higher still. And the field, fully awake now in both light and labor, continues its long, unbroken movement through the late morning. Not rushing. Not pausing. Only existing within its steady, repeating cycle of work and time. By now, the day feels fully formed. Not new anymore. Not just beginning. It has settled into itself, as if it has chosen a direction and is simply continuing along it without question. The sun is high enough that the field feels evenly lit in every direction. There is no strong contrast left between light and shadow. Everything is visible, everything is clear, and yet nothing feels hurried. The worker continues. His movements are steady, but slower than earlier in the morning. Not from hesitation. From accumulation. From the quiet weight of time already past. He bends. He works the soil with careful hands. He lifts small clumps of earth, lets them fall back gently, adjusts the space around the plants without disturbing their roots. Each action is simple, repeated, familiar. The field responds without resistance. It is not something that needs to be forced. Only guided. Around him, other workers maintain the same rhythm. There is a shared stillness inside the movement now. Even when hands are active, even when bodies are shifting, there is a calm underlying everything, as if the entire field has entered a long, continuous breath. The air feels warmer again. Not sharply hotter, but deeper in temperature. It no longer sits lightly on the skin. It rests there for longer moments before shifting away. The wind is less frequent now. When it does pass, it is brief and faint, offering only a momentary relief before the air returns to stillness. The worker pauses again. He straightens his back slowly. His gaze drifts across the field without focusing on anything in particular. The rows stretch out, unchanged in structure but gradually altered by the work of the morning. The soil looks softer in places, more open, slightly reshaped by countless small movements. There is a quiet sense of progress. Not measured. Not spoken. But present. He lowers himself again. The rhythm resumes. The repetition is no longer something he thinks about. It has become the natural state of his body. Bending. Touching. Adjusting. Moving. Breathing. All of it flowing together without interruption. A faint sound carries from somewhere farther across the field. It is not clear enough to identify. It rises briefly, then fades into the general quiet again. The world remains focused inward. Contained within this shared work. The sun continues its climb, though it is now so high that its movement feels less noticeable. Instead, what is felt is the fullness of its presence. The brightness has reached a steady peak for this part of the day. The soil holds this warmth now. Not only from above, but accumulated over time. The worker feels it through his hands as he presses into the earth again. Warm. Familiar. Unchanging in its patience. His breathing remains even. A little deeper than earlier. A little slower between movements. There is no urgency in his pace. Only continuity. Nearby, another worker briefly sits back on their heels. A short pause. Then they resume. No one speaks. No one needs to. The rhythm holds everything together. Time passes without marking itself clearly. Only the position of the sun suggests its movement. The worker continues to tend the soil. Small adjustments. Small corrections. Repeated endlessly, but never identical. Each moment slightly different from the one before it, even if the structure remains the same. The field is now fully in its mid-morning state. Stable. Bright. Steady. And within it, the workers continue their quiet, unbroken motion, shaped by repetition, endurance, and the simple, unchanging presence of the land beneath their hands. The day does not announce its next change. It only becomes it. There is no clear edge where late morning ends and noon begins. Instead, the world feels as if it has gradually settled into a deeper level of warmth, a more settled brightness that rests evenly over everything. The sun is now high enough that its presence feels almost unmoving. It is still rising, but so slowly that it seems fixed in place. The field is fully open to its light. Every row of crops, every patch of soil, every small movement of the workers is visible without shadow to hide it. The land feels wide and exposed, held gently under the steady pressure of brightness. The worker continues his task. His movements remain consistent, but there is a subtle shift now in how they are carried. Each bend takes slightly more effort than before. Each rise feels a little slower. Not because anything has changed suddenly, but because time has quietly accumulated within the body. The soil is warm beneath his hands. Warmer than earlier. It no longer feels like something separate from the air. It feels connected to it, as if the entire field is holding the same steady temperature now. He presses his fingers into it. Feels its texture. Feels its response. It yields, as always, without resistance. Around him, the other workers continue in the same rhythm. There is no break in coordination, even though no one is guiding it. Each person moves within their own space, yet the field still feels unified, as if all these separate motions are part of a single, larger pattern. The air is quieter now in its movement. The wind appears only briefly, and when it does, it is softer than before. It does not cool the field in a lasting way. It only passes through it, reminding everything that movement still exists beyond stillness. The worker pauses. He straightens slowly. His shoulders rise and fall with a deeper breath. For a moment, he does not look at anything in particular. Just forward. Just outward. The horizon is bright. The river is a faint, reflective line beyond the fields, shimmering slightly under the strong light. He remains still for a few breaths. Then returns to the soil. The rhythm resumes. But now the rhythm feels heavier in its continuity. Less like motion. More like endurance. The repetition continues without interruption. Bend. Press. Lift. Adjust. Each action flows into the next, but the space between actions feels slightly longer now, as if the body is holding each movement for a moment before letting it go. The sun is now fully dominant in the sky. Its light is steady and unwavering. There is no variation left in brightness, only intensity held consistently across the entire field. The worker wipes his forearm briefly against his clothing. A small motion. Then returns his hand to the ground. The field remains unchanged in its structure, but changed in feeling. It is no longer early. It is no longer in transition. It is fully within the central weight of the day. Nearby, a worker shifts their position slightly, moving to another row. The motion is slow, careful, unhurried. No one is rushing. No one is stopping. Everything continues. A faint sound of movement passes across the field again. It is lost quickly in the brightness and distance. The quiet remains dominant. The worker lowers himself once more. His hands press into the soil again. The earth feels steady beneath him. Constant. Familiar. Unmoving in its patience, even as everything above it burns with light and heat. Time continues its slow forward path. The field remains active. And the workers remain within it, holding their steady rhythm through the growing weight of the day, where movement and stillness begin to feel almost the same. The sun reaches its highest presence. Not in a sudden way. Not as a moment that can be clearly marked. But as a gradual settling into fullness, where the light no longer feels like it is growing, only existing in its complete form. The field is bright everywhere. There are no soft corners of shade left to retreat into. Even the smallest spaces between plants are filled with light that feels steady and unmoving. The worker continues his labor. But the rhythm has changed again, quietly. Not in structure. Only in feeling. Each movement now carries a deeper sense of effort, as if the body is working within a warmer, heavier air that surrounds it completely. He bends. His hands meet the soil. The earth is warm now, almost fully matching the air above it. It no longer feels separate in temperature or presence. It feels like part of the same continuous warmth that fills the entire field. He lifts a small section of soil. Lets it fall again. Smooths it gently. The motion is repeated, but slower than before. Not stopped. Never stopped. Just softened by time. Around him, other workers remain in their places. Their movements continue, but less frequently now in appearance, because each action takes longer to complete. There is no break in effort. Only a quiet stretching of time between motions. The air feels still. Not empty. Just held in place by heat. Even the wind, when it comes, feels faint and hesitant. It passes over the field without disturbing it, as if it is careful not to interrupt the weight of the sun. The worker pauses again. He straightens slowly. His body feels the accumulated hours more clearly now. Not as pain, but as presence. A steady awareness of effort that has been ongoing since morning and has not yet ended. He looks across the field. Everything is bright. Everything is still in motion, but the motion feels almost hidden inside the brightness, like movement beneath a calm surface. He lowers himself again. The rhythm returns. Bend. Press. Lift. Adjust. But now the space between each action feels more noticeable. Each movement stands alone for a moment before the next begins. Time feels less like flow and more like repetition placed carefully into place, one moment at a time. The sun remains high, unmoving in appearance. The sky around it is clear and wide, without interruption, without variation. The field beneath it holds steady. No change in direction. No change in purpose. Only continuation. The worker's hands move through the soil again. It is dry in some places now, slightly firmer where the heat has been constant. He adjusts his pressure without thinking. Light where needed. Firm where necessary. His breathing remains steady, but slower between movements. There is no urgency anywhere in the field. Not in the workers. Not in the land. Not in the air itself. Everything exists in a shared stillness that continues through motion. A distant sound rises briefly. Perhaps a voice. Perhaps movement beyond the field. It fades quickly. The silence returns immediately. The worker continues. The repetition holds. And the midday remains fully present, not as a moment of change, but as a long, steady condition where time feels suspended inside light, heat, and continuous, quiet labor. The sun does not move in any way that feels noticeable anymore. It is simply there. High. Constant. Unblinking in its presence over the field. The light it gives is no longer changing the world. It is just filling it completely, holding everything in a steady brightness that does not soften and does not intensify. It simply remains. The worker continues. But now the body carries something quieter and heavier than before. Not pain. Not strain. Something closer to a steady tiredness that has settled into the muscles, like a warm weight that does not leave, even when movement continues. He bends. His hands meet the soil. The earth feels different now only because of time. Not because it has changed, but because it has been touched so many times throughout the day. It is familiar under his fingers. Too familiar to feel new. He presses gently. The soil gives way in the same way it always has. The same resistance. The same softness. The same response. Around him, the field continues its slow rhythm. Other workers move in their own spaces, but the overall pace has become even more measured now. There are longer pauses between actions. Longer moments of stillness while still standing within the work. The repetition remains. But it feels stretched across time, as if each movement is separated slightly more than before. The air is very still. The wind is rare now. When it arrives, it is brief and faint, offering no lasting change in temperature or comfort. It passes through and disappears quickly, leaving everything as it was. The worker straightens slowly. His back rises carefully, as if each part of his body is aware of its own weight. He pauses in that upright position. Not looking far. Not thinking far. Just resting for a brief moment within the standing posture itself. Around him, the field remains unchanged in structure. Rows of crops. Even spacing. Soft movement of leaves that occurs only when touched directly or when a rare breeze passes. Everything is stable. Everything is continuing. He lowers himself again. The rhythm resumes, but more gently now. Bend. Press. Lift. Each motion feels slightly more deliberate, as if the body is placing each action carefully rather than flowing through it quickly. There is no urgency anywhere in the field. Not even in thought. Only presence. Only repetition. The sun remains high above, unchanged. The sky around it is white and pale, holding no clouds strong enough to interrupt the brightness. The soil beneath the worker is warm now in a deeper way. Not just on the surface, but within the upper layer, where heat has slowly settled throughout the hours. Still, beneath that warmth, there is always a cooler depth. A reminder that the earth itself holds balance even in heat. The worker feels this without needing to name it. His hands move again through the soil. Small adjustments. Small corrections. Repeated with patience that is no longer conscious effort, but habitual motion. Time passes without visible markers. Only the position of the sun suggests it is still moving forward. The body begins to adapt to the weight of the day. Not by resisting it, but by accepting it. A faint shift of posture. A slower return to bending. A longer pause between each lift. All of it blending into a quiet endurance that holds the work together. A distant sound crosses the field again. Unclear. Fading quickly. Then silence returns. The worker continues. The rhythm remains unbroken. And the midday holds steady over everything, not as a moment of change, but as a long, suspended condition where light, heat, and labor exist together in a calm, continuous stillness. The sky feels closer now. Not physically, but in presence. As if the brightness above has pressed itself more firmly over the land, filling every space between earth and horizon with the same steady weight of light. The sun remains high. It does not change position in any way that feels visible anymore. It simply holds. The worker continues his movement through the field. But now, even the smallest actions feel measured against the heat of the day. He bends. His hands meet the soil. The earth is fully warmed now in its upper layer. It holds the heat of hours, not in bursts, but in a steady accumulation that has settled into it completely. He presses gently. The soil responds the same as always. Soft. Familiar. Unresisting. But the feeling of contact is different now only because of the body that touches it. The worker lifts his hands slowly. There is no rush in any motion. Around him, the field continues in the same quiet pattern. Other workers are still present, still working, but their movements appear more spaced out now, separated by longer moments of stillness. Not stopping. Just pausing within the rhythm. The air is still. It does not move much anymore. When it does, it feels like a thin layer passing across the skin, offering no real relief, only a brief acknowledgement that movement still exists in the world. The worker straightens. He holds that position longer than before. His gaze drifts across the field again. The rows are unchanged in structure, but now they carry the visible trace of many hours of attention. The soil looks softer in places, slightly reshaped, gently altered by continuous hands. He lowers himself again. The repetition continues. Bend. Press. Lift. The cycle is unchanged, but the feeling of time within it has become heavier, slower, more drawn out. The sun remains steady overhead. Its light is complete, leaving no shadow unclaimed. Even the smallest spaces between leaves are filled with brightness that does not shift. The field is fully exposed to it. The soil beneath the worker's hands has reached a steady warmth now. It is no longer increasing. It is simply maintaining what it has gathered throughout the long hours. The worker breathes slowly. In. Out. Each breath feels slightly deeper now, as if the body is compensating for the heat without needing to think about it. Around him, movement continues. But always with quiet pauses between actions. A hand resting briefly on a knee. A body standing still for a moment before bending again. A slow shift from one row to another. Everything remains within the same rhythm. Nothing breaks it. A faint sound travels again across the field. It does not form into anything clear. It fades before becoming distinct. The silence returns quickly. The worker continues his task. His hands move through soil that feels consistent now in every place he touches. No part of the field feels different from another in temperature or texture anymore. Everything has become uniform under the midday heat. The repetition continues. Not as something that begins and ends, but as something that exists continuously, stretching through time without clear edges. The sun remains unchanged in position. The sky remains wide and still. And the field holds its workers within a long, steady moment where effort and stillness exist together, balanced under the heavy, unbroken presence of midday light. The day does not feel like it is moving forward anymore. It feels like it is simply continuing. Not beginning. Not ending. Just existing in a long, steady stretch of light that holds everything in place beneath the sun. The sky above the field is unchanged. Still bright. Still open. Still holding the same heavy, even light that has been present for what feels like a long, unbroken time. The worker continues. But now every movement carries a deeper quiet inside it. Not exhaustion that demands attention. Not pain that interrupts. Just a steady awareness of the body's effort existing in the background of everything. He bends slowly. His hands meet the soil. The earth is warm now in a complete way, as if the entire upper layer of the field has absorbed the sun and decided to hold it there without change. It no longer feels like separate moments of heat. It feels continuous. Like a single condition that has settled over the land. He presses his fingers into it. The soil gives the same response it always has. Soft where it should be soft. Firm where it should hold shape. Familiar in every way. And yet the feeling of contact seems slower now, as if even the simplest motion takes longer to travel through awareness. Around him, the other workers remain present within the field. Their bodies are still active, still moving through their tasks, but the rhythm has stretched further apart. Long pauses now sit between actions. A hand resting on the ground for a moment before continuing. A body holding still while kneeling, simply breathing before returning to motion. There is no change in direction. Only a quiet extension of time. The wind is almost absent now. When it comes, it is so faint that it feels more like an idea of movement than actual air shifting through the field. The leaves of the crops barely respond. They remain mostly still under the weight of the heat. The worker straightens again. He pauses longer in this position. Not looking for anything. Not searching. Just standing in the middle of the field's silence in motion. His shoulders rise and fall with a slow breath. The air feels dense in a soft way, not pressing down, but filling everything evenly. He lowers himself again. The repetition continues. Bend. Press. Lift. But each motion now feels separated from the next by a small space of stillness. Not interruption. Just presence. As if the body is placing each action carefully into the day before moving on to the next. The sun remains high and unwavering. Its light does not change in quality or direction. It simply continues to exist across everything. The soil beneath the worker's hands holds that light's memory in its warmth. Not increasing anymore. Just sustained. A stable heat that has become part of the field itself. The worker's breathing remains steady. Deeper now than earlier. Slower between motions. The rhythm of work continues inside that breathing, not separate from it. Around him, a few workers shift position slightly. Moving from one row to another. Adjusting their stance. But never breaking the flow of the field's shared rhythm. Everything remains quiet. Even the faint sounds of movement are absorbed into the stillness of the midday air. A distant sound appears again. It does not resolve into anything clear. It passes through and disappears quickly, like something carried on the edge of awareness. The silence returns immediately. The worker continues. His hands move through soil that feels unchanged in texture, unchanged in response, unchanged in its willingness to yield and support. But the experience of it feels slower now, as if the body is moving through a deeper layer of time. The field stretches on, wide, even, unbroken. And the midday holds everything inside it without change, without urgency, without release. Only continuation. Only the steady, quiet endurance of work beneath a sky that does not move, and a land that does not forget its rhythm. The field feels like it has entered a long pause that is still moving. Everything continues. But nothing feels like it is changing anymore. The sun remains high, holding its place in the sky with a steady, unblinking brightness. There is no sense of it rising now. No sense of it falling. Only presence. A constant weight of light across the land. The worker continues his task. But now his movements feel like they are happening inside something larger than himself, as if the day has grown wide enough to hold him, and everything he does exists within that still, open space. He bends slowly. His hands touch the soil. The earth is fully settled into its heated state now. Not growing warmer anymore, not shifting in temperature, but simply maintaining what the long hours have given it. Warm. Even. Familiar. He presses gently. The soil responds as it always does. There is comfort in that consistency, even in fatigue. Around him, the field holds its rhythm in a quieter form now. Workers are still present, still moving, but the spaces between their actions have widened again. Longer pauses. Slower transitions. More stillness between each moment of effort. A hand resting on a knee. A body holding position before continuing. A brief pause to breathe more deeply before returning to the soil. Nothing is spoken. Nothing needs to be. The wind is nearly absent. When it arrives, it is so faint that it barely touches the crops before disappearing again. The leaves barely acknowledge it. The air feels suspended. Not heavy. Not light. Just still. The worker straightens. He remains upright longer than before. His eyes move slowly across the field. Everything looks the same as it has for hours. Rows of crops. Even spacing. The quiet structure of work continuing without interruption. And yet something subtle has shifted in how it feels. Not in the land. In the experience of it. He lowers himself again. The repetition continues. Bend. Press. Lift. But now each action feels like it is placed carefully into time, separated by small intervals of stillness that were not as noticeable earlier in the day. The sun remains unchanged. High. Constant. The sky around it is pale and open, holding no variation strong enough to break the uniform brightness. The field beneath it is fully exposed now, with no shade left to soften the intensity. The soil continues to hold heat. Not increasing. Not decreasing. Just sustained. The worker's breathing is slow. Deep between movements. The body moves with a quiet acceptance of the day's weight, adjusting itself without resistance. Around him, another worker shifts slightly from one row to another. The movement is unhurried. Careful. As if even stepping across the field requires attention in this stage of the day. The sound of tools is minimal now. Not gone. But softened into the background of everything. A faint scrape. A brief contact with soil. Then stillness again. Time feels stretched. Not fast. Not slow. Just extended, as if the day has widened and there is more space between each passing moment. The worker continues. His hands move through the soil again. Each motion familiar. Each motion unchanged in purpose. But the feeling of moving through it is different now, as if the body is working within a deeper layer of stillness that sits beneath the visible field. The sun holds its position. The field holds its rhythm. And everything remains within this long, steady state of midday where effort continues, but time feels suspended inside it, soft and unbroken. The sun does not announce its turning. It only begins it. So slowly that the field does not notice at first. The light is still strong, still wide, still covering everything in the same even brightness that has filled the entire late morning and midday. But somewhere in that brightness, something begins to soften at the edges. Not in a way that can be pointed to. Only felt. The worker continues. His body moves through the same familiar pattern, but now each motion feels slightly more spaced apart, as if the time between actions has quietly expanded. He bends. His hands press into the soil. The earth is still warm from hours of steady heat, but it no longer feels like it is increasing. It feels stable now, as if it has reached a long-held balance between sun and ground. He lifts his hands slowly. Lets them hover for a moment. Then returns to the same motion again. Around him, the field remains full of quiet labor. Workers are still present in every direction, but their movements are no longer continuous in appearance. Instead, they appear as slow cycles of effort and pause. A body kneeling. Still. Then moving again. A hand resting briefly on the ground. Then continuing. A shift from one row to another, taken carefully, almost gently. There is no urgency anywhere in the field. Only endurance shaped into repetition. The wind returns for a moment. It is slightly more noticeable now than earlier, but still soft. It passes over the crops in a slow wave, moving leaves together, then letting them settle again. The sound is faint, like a long breath moving across the land. The worker pauses. He straightens. This time, he remains standing for longer than before. His eyes move across the field, but without searching. Everything is still the same. And yet something within the experience of it feels subtly different. Not changed. Just, easing. He breathes in slowly. The air feels slightly less dense than earlier. Not cooler yet. Just more open. He lowers himself again. The rhythm continues. Bend. Press. Lift. But now each action feels like it belongs to a slower layer of time, where everything is separated by small, quiet spaces of stillness. The sun remains high, but no longer feels at its absolute peak. It holds steady, but the sharpest intensity of midday has begun to soften almost imperceptibly. The sky remains clear and pale, with no clouds to mark the passage of time. The field reflects this subtle shift in its own way. Not visually dramatic. Only in feeling. The soil beneath the worker's hands remains warm, but not growing warmer anymore. It holds its temperature like something that has settled into place. Familiar. Stable. Unchanging. The worker continues to move through it. Each motion is still the same, but the weight of the day now sits more evenly across the body, no longer concentrated in one long stretch of midday intensity. It is spreading out. Softening. Not ending. Just easing. Around him, other workers continue in their own rhythm. No one speaks. No one signals. But there is a shared sense of the day moving forward into a different quality. Still work. Still presence. But slowly shifting away from the central weight of noon. The distant sounds of the village are faint now. Almost entirely absorbed by the openness of the field. Only the subtle movement of tools, soil, and breath remains clearly present. The worker lowers his hands again into the earth. He smooths a small section of soil. Adjusts it. Lets it settle. Then pauses. For a longer moment than before. Not stopping. Just resting within the motion itself. The sun holds steady. But something in the light feels slightly less sharp at its edges. The field remains full. But the long, heavy stillness of midday is beginning, almost invisibly, to loosen. And in that loosening, everything continues quiet, steady, and unbroken, waiting for the slow arrival of the afternoon. The change is still so small that it could almost be missed. Not a shift that announces itself. Not a moment that divides the day. Only a gentle softening, spread across time so evenly that the field itself does not seem to realize it is happening. The sun remains high. But its presence feels slightly different now. Not weaker. Not lower. Just less sharp at the edges, as if the light is beginning to lose its hardest intensity and settle into something smoother. The worker continues his movement through the soil. But the rhythm has changed again in a way that is only noticeable when compared to earlier hours. Each motion now carries a longer pause before and after it. A slower return. A quieter preparation. He bends. His hands meet the earth. The soil is still warm from the long stretch of midday heat, but it no longer feels like it is accumulating heat. It feels as if it has reached its full expression of warmth and is simply holding it now. Steady. Even. Familiar. He presses gently. The ground responds without hesitation. Around him, the field is still full of labor, but the quality of movement has shifted. There is more stillness between actions now. More resting moments held within the flow of work. A worker kneels for a longer time than before continuing. Another remains standing, hands resting at their sides, simply breathing before returning to the soil. No one breaks the rhythm. But the rhythm itself has widened. The wind returns again. It is slightly more consistent than earlier, though still gentle. It moves across the field in a slow pass, touching the crops in a soft wave that travels row by row before fading. The sound it creates is faint but noticeable now. A low rustling that comes and goes. The worker straightens slowly. He holds that position for a longer moment. His gaze moves across the field again. Everything is still bright. Still open. Still fully exposed to daylight. And yet something subtle has begun to change in how it feels to stand within it. The weight of the day is no longer increasing. It is simply continuing at a steady level, no longer building upon itself. He breathes in. The air feels slightly lighter than before. Not cooler in a strong sense. But less dense. More open in its movement. He lowers himself again. The repetition continues. Bend. Press. Lift. But now each cycle feels more separated, as if time itself has placed a small pause between each action. The sun remains dominant, but no longer feels like it is holding its highest point with the same intensity as before. It is steady. But softer at the edges. The sky remains clear and wide, holding the same pale openness that has stretched across the entire day. The field beneath it continues to respond in quiet agreement. The soil remains warm, but stable now. No longer changing in temperature. Just holding what it has received. The worker moves through it again. His hands adjust small sections of earth. Smooth. Press. Release. The motions are simple, but slower than earlier in the day. Around him, the field remains filled with quiet movement. But there is a growing sense that the pace is gently loosening. Not stopping. Not slowing dramatically. Just easing. A distant sound passes across the field again. Faint. Unclear. It fades almost immediately. The silence returns as it always does. The worker continues. And in this long, quiet stretch of afternoon beginning to take shape, everything remains steady, familiar, and gently held within the soft continuation of the day. The day continues, but it no longer feels like it is holding the same pressure it did before. Something in the air has loosened. Not in a way that can be clearly seen. Only felt, in the subtle way the field no longer seems locked in the tight stillness of midday. The sun is still hot. Still steady. But its presence now feels less like a weight pressing down and more like a wide, even glow that simply exists across everything. The worker continues. His movements are slower now, but not weaker. More measured. More spaced. as if the body has naturally adjusted itself to a different phase of the day without needing instruction. He bends. His hands meet the soil again. The earth feels familiar in its warmth, but there is a slight difference now in how it responds. Not in texture, but in feeling. As if it is no longer absorbing heat, only holding it. He presses gently. The soil yields in the same steady way it always has. Around him, the field continues its quiet motion. But there is a noticeable shift in rhythm now. Workers pause more often between actions. Not resting fully. Just holding still for brief moments before continuing. A kind of breathing space has opened within the work. A slow, natural pause that sits inside the repetition. The wind passes again. A little more present than earlier. It moves across the crops in a longer sweep this time, causing a soft, continuous ripple through the field. Leaves shift together, then settle again, like a wave that rises and fades without urgency. The sound it creates is low and steady, comforting in its simplicity. The worker straightens. He holds that position longer than before. His body feels the accumulation of hours more clearly now, not as strain, but as a quiet awareness that the day has been long and continuous. He looks across the field again. The light is still bright, but no longer harsh. It feels more even now. Less concentrated in intensity. More spread across space. He breathes in slowly. The air feels slightly lighter again. Still warm, but not as heavy as before. He lowers himself. The rhythm continues. Bend. Press. Lift. But now each action feels like it belongs to a slower, more open rhythm, where time between movements has stretched gently outward. The sun remains steady. But its highest point no longer feels like a peak. It feels like something that has already been reached and is now slowly beginning to ease away from. Not falling. Just transitioning. The sky remains clear. Wide. Pale in its upper layers. There are no clouds, no interruptions. Only the continuous presence of light. The soil beneath the worker's hands holds its warmth evenly now. It does not change as he moves through it. It simply remains. Stable. Familiar. The worker continues to tend it. Adjusting small sections. Smoothing. Pressing. Letting the earth settle after each movement. His breathing is steady. Deeper than earlier. Slower between motions. Around him, the field continues its shared rhythm, but the sense of intensity has softened further. Everything is still in motion. But the motion feels more open now, less compressed by the height of the sun. Time itself feels slightly wider. Less tight. More flowing. A faint sound crosses the field once more. It is quickly lost. The silence returns. And within that silence, the worker continues his steady, familiar work as the afternoon slowly begins to take shape around him, quiet and unhurried, stretching gently into the next phase of the day. The afternoon does not end in a moment. It does not announce itself. It only begins to loosen, slowly, like something that has been held for a long time and is now finally allowed to ease. The sun is still visible, still strong in its presence, but it is no longer at its highest point. It holds itself differently now, no longer pressing evenly across everything with the same weight as before. The light has changed in feeling more than in form. Softer at the edges. Wider in its spread. Less intense in its center. The worker continues his task in the field. But now even the rhythm of work feels quieter, as if the entire day has begun to breathe more slowly. He bends. His hands meet the soil. The earth is still warm, but it no longer carries the deep, steady accumulation of midday heat. It feels like it has settled into itself, holding what it received without change. He presses gently. The soil yields as always. Familiar. Unchanged in its response. Around him, the field is still active, but the movements are fewer now in appearance. There are longer pauses between actions. Longer moments where people simply remain still before continuing. Not stopping. Just resting within the flow of the day. The wind returns more often now. It moves through the field in soft, unhurried passes. It does not interrupt the work. It does not change it. It only passes through it, as if acknowledging the long hours already lived. The sound of it is low and steady, blending into the field rather than standing apart from it. The worker straightens. He remains standing for a longer moment. His body feels the full span of the day now, not as strain, but as a quiet awareness of time past. He looks across the field. Everything is still in place. Still familiar. But the feeling of the field has changed. It no longer feels like it is held under the peak of the sun. It feels like it is slowly moving away from it. He breathes in. The air feels softer. Still warm, but no longer heavy. He lowers himself again. The rhythm continues. Bend. Press. Lift. But now each motion feels spaced within a calmer version of time, as if the urgency of earlier hours has dissolved into something steadier. The sun continues its slow descent. Not visibly dramatic, but present in its gradual lowering. The sky begins to open in a different way, no longer filled with the full weight of midday brightness, but with a more open, extended light that stretches toward the horizon. The soil beneath the worker's hands holds its warmth, but it no longer changes. It simply remains what it has become through the long day. Stable. Familiar. The field continues its quiet labor. But there is a sense now that everything is beginning to return. Not stopping. Not ending sharply. Just easing back toward rest. The worker moves through the final moments of his task. Small adjustments. Gentle movements. Slower than before. The repetition remains, but it is lighter now, less dense in feeling. Around him, others also begin to shift in the same way. Not leaving yet, but preparing. The day is still present, but its center has moved. The light continues to soften as it travels lower across the sky. Shadows begin to stretch again, slowly at first, then more noticeably. The field responds without effort. As it always has. As it always will. The worker stands once more. He looks across the land he has worked through the long hours of the day. It is unchanged in structure, but changed in memory. The day has passed through it completely now. And he begins to walk back, slowly, with the same quiet rhythm that carried him here in the morning. The river remains steady beside the path. The village begins to reappear in the distance. Fires will soon be lit again. Homes will become warm again. The familiar cycle will continue into evening. And the worker, like all others, moves gently back into it. Evening does not arrive loudly. It simply settles. The sun lowers further, casting long, soft shadows across the village and fields. The light is no longer wide and heavy. It is gentle now, stretched thin across the land, touching everything without pressure. The worker returns home. The fire is already being prepared. Not with urgency. With familiarity. With the quiet understanding that the day's work is complete. Inside the home, the light is warm again, but different from the morning fire. It feels more settled, more resting. The air carries the scent of cooked grain, soft wood smoke, and the calm of completed labor. People move less now. They speak less. Not from silence forced upon them, but from the natural quiet that follows a long day of repetition and effort. Outside, the river continues its steady movement. It does not change with the day. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It remains, as it always has, carrying the reflection of the fading sky. The worker sits. His body is still. The day is behind him now, not as something lost, but as something fully lived through. Morning's beginning. Midday's wait. Afternoon's soft release. All of it exists now only as memory in the body's quiet rest. The sky darkens slowly. Not quickly. Not abruptly. Just gently, as light withdraws in layers from the world. Stars begin to return, faint at first, then clearer as time passes. The village becomes still again, but not the same stillness as before. This is a stillness that has been earned through movement. Through labor. Through the long, simple rhythm of a day that asked nothing more than presence. The worker lies down again. His body settles into rest the same way it always does. The sounds of the village fade. Firelight softens. The night begins again. Not as an ending, but as a return. A quiet space where everything that was done during the day rests without weight. And the world continues its cycle. Slow. Steady. Endless. Just as it has always been.